For 40 years, I ran the garment factory to support our family, while my husband chased his dream of being a literary artist. On his deathbed, he clutched a heart-shaped stone in his hand, murmuring the name of his first love over and over. Back when travel was slow, a lifetime was only enough to love one person. Our daughter published their story, and countless readers were deeply moved by it. Oh, how I wish the two of them could be together in their next life. Damn arranged marriages. They forced Mr. Lin to spend his whole life with a woman he didn't love. As she read the comments aloud to me in my hospital bed, I closed my eyes, overwhelmed by despair and sorrow. Mom, what's with that attitude? Dad and Aunt Jiang missed their chance at happiness in this life. As the one who ended up with him, what more do you want? A single, clear tear traced its path down my cheek as I breathed my last, consumed by bitter resentment. When my eyes opened again, I was back on the day someone came to buy the garment factory. This time, he can have their romanticism. I'm walking my own path into the dawn. The crackle of vintage static from an old radio, pure 80s, confirmed it. I had been reborn. In the courtyard, Gu Shishing held a heart-shaped stone, animatedly telling its story to the young Gunyeni. I always knew, in my past life, it was a farewell gift from Gu Shishing's first love. At first, I didn't pay it much mind. After all, who doesn't have a few youthful romances? But I never imagined that Gu Shishing would remember her until his dying day, clutching that heart-shaped stone in his palm even in his final moments. And I didn't even know her name. It wasn't until after Gu Shishing's death, while I was sorting through his belongings, that I found a stack of letters hidden in his bedding. They spanned a period of 40 years. Yet he and I had only been married for 39. The letter was signed, Jiang Yi, Gu Niani. He named our daughter Niani. At that thought, a spasm clenched my stomach, and I pressed a hand to my chest in agony. I crumpled the freshly delivered letter in my hand, then smoothed it out again. Miss Sun, this is already a rock-bottom price. If that's not enough, I'll throw in another 20,000. Just sell the garment factory to us. We'll even give you a 5% monthly dividend on top. I closed my eyes and made a decision that went against the grain of my past life. With great effort, I raised my hand and wrote the word deal on the back. In my past life, I was the one running this garment factory, supporting the entire family's expenses. Meanwhile, Gu Shishing was chasing his bohemian dream, spending his days immersed in poetry and prose, keeping company with brush and ink. Yet, it brought in next to no income. Despite all this, my daughter still idolized him, determined to carry on her father's unfinished legacy, and was even deeply moved by the tragic, unrequited love story between Gu Shishing and Jiang Yi. In those days, travel was slow, and a lifetime was only long enough to love one person. What did my over 40 years of sacrifice even mean in their eyes? What about me? The bitterness of dying with regrets welled up in my chest once more. Thankfully, I was reborn and given a second chance. This time, they can have their romanticism. I'll go and greet the dawn myself. Perhaps my gaze was too intense, for the father and daughter in the courtyard finally noticed me. Gu Niani shot me a sidelong glance and continued to caress the heart-shaped stone as if it were a treasure. Dad, if it weren't for the arranged marriage with Mom, could you have been with Aunt Jiang instead? Gu Shishing covered her mouth, his voice low but perfectly clear to me. Keep your voice down, Niani, your mother won't be happy if she hears. Gu Niani covered her mouth to stifle a giggle. It's fine, Mom's uneducated. All she knows is business and scheming. She wouldn't understand the way we new generation people talk. Those words felt like a massive slap across my face. Swallowing my bitterness, I stuffed the letter into my pocket and headed to the town's post office to mail it. In that case, I wanted to see how this father and daughter, without my management and scheming, would manage to survive on their so-called scholarly integrity in this lifetime. By the time I returned, it was already dusk. The handover procedures would take about a week to complete, which was just enough time for me to settle and tally the garment factory's income from the past few years. With the money from the sale, I'll have more than enough to live comfortably somewhere else. Gu Shishing was pacing back and forth in the courtyard. Seeing me return, he immediately grabbed my arm and started chattering away. Ah son, make something special for lunch tomorrow. Don't use coarse rice, use the finest grain we have. Oh, and use the ration coupons to get some pork. Actually, let's slaughter the duck in the backyard too. He kept clapping his hands together, unable to contain his excitement. I asked, who's coming? In my recollection from my past life, no day had ever called for such a grand occasion. Gu Niani poked her head out, her face beaming with a smile. Auntie Jiang is coming. Dad wrote a letter specially inviting her a few days ago. and we finally got her reply today. A wave of doubt rose within me. In my past life, I had never met Jiang Yi, so why would she appear in this one? I turned to look at Gu Shixing, just in time to catch a sharp glint in his eyes. That was a look that didn't belong to Gu Shixing at 30, so it turns out I'm not the only one with regrets, nor the only one who's been reborn, but maybe that's for the best. I was just wondering how Gu Shixing would entertain his white moonlight with those 10, sprawling, poetic letters of his. Money and worldly shrewdness can at least buy a few measures of rice and oil, while love only earns you a bellyful of water. The next day, before the rooster had even crowed, Gu Shixing was already up. He boiled water, swept and cleaned, bustling about as if it were the new year. In the 40-odd years of our marriage in my past life, he never once got up early, let alone took the initiative to tidy up the house like this. It just wasn't a priority, that's all. Mom, why are you still in bed? Aunt Jiang will be here any minute, go get ready. Gu Niani nudged me, her lips pouted in a full-on sulk. Gu Shixing came in with a broom. Niani, go make sure your mother gets the groceries. As she turned her head to look at me, a smirk instantly fell across her face, her eyes brimming with disdain and contempt. Aunt Jiang and Dad are both educated people, don't be so careless. Stop haggling over a few pennies when you buy groceries, it's so embarrassing. I let out a bitter laugh. A stinging sensation welling up in my eyes. If it weren't for my haggling, where would you and your father get the food and things you use? Gu Niani lifted her chin. Dad always says, money is made, not saved, don't twist my words. Looking at her features, a perfect copy of Gu Shixing's, my heart ached unbearably. If only I had been reborn 10 years earlier, at least there wouldn't be a child I couldn't take back. Gu Shixing always played the role of the good cop, smoothing things over by saying, all right now, don't be upset with Mom, she has it tough too. He then kept instructing me, add 2 more fish for dinner tonight. Jiang Yi loves fish, one for stewing into soup, the other braised in soy sauce. In these times, sugar and oil were precious commodities. Having been reborn, he had clearly forgotten this, his mind singularly focused on giving his white moonlight the very best. I couldn't help but ask, Gu Shixing, what about me? What am I to you? What do I like to eat? What do you even take me for? He froze, not quite processing it. You could have just shared some soup with me. The air in here is suffocating. Before the tears could fall, I strode out of the room. Gu Shixing and I were betrothed as children, what Gu Niani calls a feudal relic. He and Jiang Yi met back in the days when educated youth were sent down to the countryside. Gu Shixing's ancestors had produced a provincial scholar, but times had changed. His family could no longer afford a proper bride price, leaving only a few pieces of his own handwritten calligraphy as offerings. That connection ultimately faded without a trace, becoming a dream Gu Shixing could never attain. After returning to his hometown, he married me, and my garment factory grew from a small workshop into a modestly scaled operation. In my past life, I kept this scholar sheltered from all hardship, his hands never touching a drop of dishwater. He knew only poetry and prose, utterly clueless about the cost of daily bread. Suddenly reborn, he still assumed this life would be one of the same comfort and ease, but any goodwill between us was spent in that last lifetime. This time around, I won't be supporting him, or Gu Niani for that matter. When I returned, a few pieces of luggage sat by the courtyard gate. The protagonist had already arrived. Hearing my approach, a smile still lingered at the corner of Gu Shixing's lips. You're back so late. Jiang Yi's been waiting and is starving. He reached out to take my basket, but his face darkened the moment he saw the empty bamboo container. You didn't buy anything. What is Jiang Yi supposed to eat now, Lu Sun? Did you do this on purpose? The basket was flung into the vegetable patch. I mustered every ounce of strength to suppress the bitterness and resentment within. Gu Shixing, I'm not that pathetic. Taking care of you was out of love, but what does taking care of Jiang Yi amount to? I'm not your servant, it's just a meal. Jiang Yi came all this way, how can you be so inconsiderate? I pointed at the pile of luggage, my voice trembling. And after dinner, where is she supposed to go then? He frowned. Gu Shixing's lips moved, his voice fading to a whisper. I just invited Jiang Yi to experience life here for a few days. You can't be that petty, can you? If you're going to make a fuss over something this trivial, well, that's just being small-minded. I pushed him aside and walked straight into the house. Jiang Yi and Gu Niani were chatting and laughing heartily, as if they were the real family. When she saw me arrive, she stood up. Hello, Sister Sun, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Jiang Yi. I thought that upon seeing Jiang Yi, I would be hysterical, I would be furious, yet, I was surprisingly calm. After all, this is the soul of someone over 60, in my past life, Jiang Yi never entered my world, it was Gu Shixing who couldn't forget her, but I'm no saint, I couldn't bring myself to be pleasant to her. I walked right past Jiang Yi. And only after locking myself in my room could I finally breathe freely again. Mom, where's dinner? What on earth are you doing? Gu Nianyi knocked impatiently on the door, finally giving it a frustrated kick. I heard Gu Shixing say, I don't know what's up with your mom today, let's just the three of us go out to eat. The clamor of their three voices gradually faded into the distance, a breeze drifted in from the windowsill, brushing past the corner of my eye. Only then did I realize my cheeks were already streaked with tears. A torrent of tears severed all ties to my past life, after weathering this storm. I am Lu Sun, no longer anyone's mother, nor anyone's wife. I rose to my feet with resolve and began taking stock of every valuable item in the house. In my pocket was a train ticket I had bought that morning. In a few days, once the garment factory transfer process is complete, it will be time for me to leave. Someone from town rushed over to tell me that Gu Shixing and his two companions had been detained at the restaurant for not having enough money to pay the bill. To show off in front of Jiang Yi, he had ordered some imported liquor. By the time I arrived, his face was a mixture of ashen pale and flushed red. Seeing me, Gu Nianyi quickly grabbed my sleeve. Mom, hurry up and pay, Dad doesn't have enough money. Gu Shixing never handled the finances, neither in this life nor the last. All household expenses were in my hands. I slowly pulled my hand away and raised my voice. I'm the only one working in this house, to support your father's poetry and writing. We've long been spending more than we earn. With that, he wiped away the non-existent tears from the corner of his eye. Upon hearing this, the onlookers were outraged and began to denounce Gu Shixing as a man who shirked his responsibilities. Being a scholar with a thin skin, Gu Shixing's face turned an awful shade of embarrassment. He whispered, Son, could you cover the cost for now? Jiang Yi and our daughter are right here, please. Not like this. Jiang Yi shrank back. Clearly caught off guard by this awkward turn of events, I suggested to the shopkeeper that we put it on credit, and that Gu Shixing would settle the bill himself later. Little did I know, Gu Shixing would rather swallow his pride than compromise his lofty, scholarly dignity. He removed the silver ring from his finger. I'll leave this as a pledge for now. I'll come back to redeem it. My gaze fixed on the ring, a fine, prickling itch welled up in the corners of my eyes. This silver ring was a memento from our wedding, the only decent thing we had back then. He just pawned it, just like that. Very well, the love and hatred of 2 lifetimes are now utterly extinguished. Gu Shixing hurried after him. Son, I'll make it up to you someday. Please don't be angry. I couldn't help but let out a scornful laugh. Make it up, Gu Shixing. With what? Your poems, your essays. His eyes darkened, and he launched into a lecture. I turned and left. Lu Sun. Must you humiliate me like this? Don't you understand that wealth is but a worldly possession, while literature and talent are treasures one should never cast aside like worn-out shoes? I stopped in my tracks and said with a laugh. My apologies, I'm just a businessman who knows only how to scheme and calculate. I don't understand such things. Then, turning to look back at Jiang Yi and Gu Nianyi following at a distance, I added, go find someone who understands you. Gu Shixing was struck speechless on the spot. Ignoring his face, which was as dark as soot, I simply went home by myself. The next day, in an attempt to save face in front of Jiang Yi, Gu Shixing took the initiative to bring her to my garment factory and picked out a few pieces of clothing with nice designs. Without batting an eye, I gathered the transfer contract in my arms and instructed the young assistant to record their expenses at the market rate. No rush, a new master will come to collect from them soon enough. After receiving the final payment from the garment factory, I packed my bags, ready to set off tomorrow. Gu Shixing saw all the luggage and asked, where are you off to with all this? I was evasive, just going out for a bit. He let out a wry laugh, rubbing his forehead. Sun is so thoughtful. Knowing my birthday is tomorrow, he's already packed for everyone. Well, that works. The 4 of us can go on a nice little family trip together. I was a bit taken aback by his confidence. I almost couldn't hold back a laugh. A family of 4, he was certain I'd give in for him. Yes. Nianyi and I have long considered Jiang Yi part of our family. Don't worry, it's just his family, nothing more than that. Just as he was speaking, Jiang Yi ran in from outside. Nearing 30, she still carried the innocent air of a young girl. Brother Gu, I prepared a birthday gift for you. Come and see. She held out a larger, heart-shaped stone and handed it to Gu Shixing. Gu Shishing's face lit up with delight. Oh, Jiang-yi, that's so thoughtful of you. A meaningful gift that doesn't cost a thing is just perfect. Jiang-yi suddenly raised her voice, looking at me with an air of great seriousness. Brother Gu regards money as dirt. With his noble, plum and bamboo-like character, how could he possibly care for such worldly possessions? I couldn't understand their flowery, highfalutin talk, so I just kept cracking sunflower seeds by myself, since they have no use for worldly possessions. Starting tomorrow, not a single penny will be left in this house, so as not to offend their sensibilities. Gu Shishing carefully put away the heart-shaped stone and said to me, remember to wash and dry my new clothes today. I want to wear them tomorrow. I was puzzled. What new clothes? His body stiffened for a moment. You didn't make them. Oh, I think I remember now. In my past life, on his 30th birthday, I personally sewed a garment for him, using the finest fabrics and craftsmanship from the tailor's shop. What was it he said back then? He scolded me for being extravagant and wasteful, then took the clothes and left. Seeing me frozen in place, a flicker of annoyance flashed in Gu Shishing's eyes. Forget it, wearing old clothes is fine, but I do expect you to make it up in a couple of days. The thought still counts. I smiled at him, spoiled by me in a past life. He's getting his wish for a simpler one this time around. Wait a moment. He stopped in his tracks. I knew you had something. I poured a handful of sunflower seeds into his palm. It's the thought that counts. I know Teacher Gu doesn't care for material things. I spat out a shell. There, my sincerity is delivered. He flew into a rage, as if his shameful secret had been laid bare. Lu Sun, must you humiliate me like this? I know you've been supporting me all these years, and you have your grievances, but I thought you would support me, that you'd understand my desire to write books and poetry. I never imagined you'd still be this petty, money-grubbing Philistine, utterly lacking in class. He tossed down the sunflower seeds and strode off, leaving behind an air of haughty disdain. I burst out laughing for no reason. Yeah, I supported him for over 40 years in my past life, yet I couldn't compare to someone else's heart-shaped stone. As I laughed, my eyelashes became completely wet again. A pale moon was faintly visible on the horizon, while the few people in the room were still fast asleep. I've seen this faintly lit dawn sky countless times in my past life, all for the sake of my family's livelihood, but from now on, everything I do will be for myself, and myself alone. With my simple luggage in tow, I boarded the bus to the city. Then, I waited for the train that would take me to Shenzhen. About 10 minutes before departure, a familiar voice called out from beyond the station gates, "Ah Sun, wait, I need to talk to you." It was Gu Shishing. He was being held back by the station staff, looking like a troublemaker, not at all the picture of a refined scholar. I set down my luggage and met his gaze across the fence. He caught his breath and tried to explain to me. Jiang-yi wasn't doing well back home, that's why I brought her here. It's not like we can't afford to feed one more person. What's the point of all this? There's never been anything between us. Are you really running away from home over this? Indeed, in this life, and even in the last, nothing ever happened between them, but an emotional affair is still a form of infidelity. Unlike a physical affair, an emotional one can even last a lifetime. Memories ferment in the mind, growing ever more profound. I can't fathom it. For over 40 years in our past life, Gu Shishing carried another woman in his heart. Yet he went through the motions of marrying me, having children, and sharing a bed for decades as if it were nothing. It's utterly revolting. I let out a soft, bitter laugh. Gu Shishing, just because she's having a hard time back home, you bring her here, for me to take care of her. Since when does the world hand out such good fortune? All those years of studying, did it all just go to waste? Those closest to you know exactly where to twist the knife. Gu Shishing's greatest fear was others saying he'd spent his whole life with his nose in books, only to amount to nothing in the end. Sure enough, he stumbled back 2 steps. Lu Sun, you have such a vicious tongue. Let me tell you, if it weren't for our childhood betrothal, do you really think I'd be willing to marry a woman as conniving and calculating as you? I tilted my head slightly and enunciated each word clearly. You married me because Jiang-yi wanted nothing to do with a poor scholar like you back then. In our past life, he lived comfortably off my wealth, which gave him the mistaken impression of his own competence. Now, in this life, he wants to have his cake and eat it too. He flicked his sleeve dismissively. Lu Sun, if you leave, don't you dare come back. If you come crawling back to me in tears, I won't acknowledge you as my wife. A horn sounded. I picked up my suitcase and took one last look at this place. Don't worry, I won't be back. The train rattled along, carrying a weary soul long past exhaustion toward her final destination. Shenzhen, 1980. I'm not an educated person, I just knew, at that moment, that this was where I was meant to be. In my past life, I spent my years tied to a small garment factory for the sake of my family, letting my life slip away without ever getting the chance to come here and witness an era take flight. The moment my toes touched the ground, the fiery morning sun bathed me in its light, and everything felt full of life and promise. It wasn't just the era that was vibrant, so was I. Brimming with youthful energy, Lu Sun, at the young age of 30, I rented a small place for myself. Life was simple, yet undeniably filled with hope. Carrying a few garment samples, I went to the largest clothing factory at the time. Drawing on my past life's experience, I landed a job fairly quickly. The hum of sewing machines in the factory became the steady drumbeat of my days, propelling me upward. It turned out that after leaving that small town, the world outside wasn't so stormy after all. I met many people I never encountered in my past life and saw sights I never laid eyes on before. Miss Sun, I heard you're being promoted to workshop supervisor, a little girl with braided pigtails asked me with a grin. I put down the work in my hands and nodded with a smile. One evening, as I was heading home from work as usual, a grimy-looking man suddenly ran up and grabbed me. I swung my bag at him. Son, it's me. Stop hitting me. The man was Gu Shishing. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked utterly exhausted. Son, come home with me. The house is in complete chaos. And what are you still doing here? I shook off his grip and said coldly, I'm not going back. Do you have any idea what I've been through to find you? I searched every single garment factory in Shenzhen before I finally tracked you down. After saying that, he held up his chapped and cracked knuckles for me to see. I let out an indifferent "oh," and said, that's none of my business. If you call this little bit of chapped skin hardship, then what were the hundreds of scars, big and small, on my hands in my past life? He yanked his hand back as if he'd been branded, and asked me, what about Niani? Are you abandoning her too? Do you really want us to starve to death? I shot back, you have your poetry and romantic moonlit strolls. How could someone like Teacher Gu possibly be interested in something as vulgar as money? As for Gu Niani, why not just let Jiangyi take care of her? After all, your family. His hand, hanging at his side, clenched into a tight fist, yet his spine remained ramrod straight, like a pine tree. Son, stop making a fuss. You know perfectly well that writing poetry requires inspiration. I can't write a single line on an empty stomach. Besides, when you married me, a worldly woman like you was hardly a match for a scholar like myself. You haven't exactly had a raw deal all these years, so, come back. The household needs you. His words were uttered with great reluctance, as if they were a profound insult to his lofty character. I was so angry I almost laughed. Gu Shishing, you bite the hand that feeds you. You're never satisfied, always complaining. Even the most ungrateful wretch couldn't put on an act as well as you do. He took 2 disbelieving steps back, muttering under his breath, ah son, you weren't like this in your past life. Why is this? I finished the sentence for him. Why is it different this time around? His face was a picture of pure shock. Son, you've been reborn too. I just smiled, neither confirming nor denying it. Fate is fair. You have the chance to find your youthful moonlight again, and I have the chance to live my own life anew. Gu Shishing, in this life, you won't have to fill stacks of letters with your longing for her anymore. His pupils constricted. You saw all of it. Yes, I saw. I saw how utterly pathetic I was in my past life. Seizing the moment he was stunned, I turned and boarded the bus. He pounded frantically on the window, every trace of his former composure gone. Wait, Asun, I haven't finished. Let me explain. The bus pulled away, leaving him, and the person I used to be, stranded in the sunset glow of the 1980s. The next day, a few of our fellow townsfolk had all heard about Gu Shishing staking out the place. Some of them, who had arrived a few months after me, teased me, saying, Sister Sun, you have no idea. After you left, Teacher Gu even pawned off the old family home. What Teacher Gu? He should be called Deadbeat Gu now. I set down my weaving, my interest peaked. What happened? Tell me all the details, and I'll treat you all to drinks tonight. A few heads leaned in closer. Sister Sun, you wouldn't believe it about Jiangyi. He looks all refined and scholarly, but guess what? He keeps going to your old garment factory to take nice clothes for himself. The sheer audacity of it is just unbelievable. Well, you see, they didn't know you weren't coming back, so the bills just kept piling up. When the factory's new owner came to collect, that old deadbeat Gu couldn't stand to see her in a tight spot, so he gave her his entire life savings, the money he'd set aside for his own funeral. I lowered my head and smiled bitterly. Gu Shisheng really would go to any lengths for his one true love. A few years back, when my garment factory was struggling to stay afloat, I asked him if he had any spare cash. He just said he was barely scraping by himself and had never been one to save money. Even a few months ago, when he was putting on airs and ordering expensive imported liquor, he was fully expecting me to pick up the tab. The girl saw me lower my head and mistakenly thought I was upset. Hey, Sunjia, don't be sad. We were just talking casually, and then what happened? I threw my head back and laughed. Why on earth should I be sad? They got what they deserved. I pressed on. And what about the old family house? What happened to it? That old deadbeat Gu had to provide for Jiang Yi, plus his daughter needed to go to school and eat. He had no choice but to put the house up as collateral. Word is, the whole family's crammed into a shabby shack now. The shift end whistle blew. I stood up and waved. Come on, girls. Big sis is treating you all to karaoke. The young women laughed heartily. I changed out of my work clothes and into a cinched waist dress, complete with oversized sunglasses. Outside, the neon lights of the city were ablaze. This kind of life was something I had never experienced in my past life. I hadn't taken more than a few steps when I heard a furious shout. Mother, what on earth are you wearing? It's indecent. I turned and saw Gunyeni. Her hair was greasy and matted into strands, yet her eyes still held a naive, unworldly innocence. I saw Gu Shisheng standing not far away. He was the one who had brought Gunyeni here, foolishly hoping I would soften. No, I haven't forgotten. In my past life, I worked from dawn till dusk to put her through school, letting her stand on my very flesh and blood to see a wider world. And in the end, all I got in return was her. While I lay gravely ill, singing praises of the tragic, missed love between Gu Shisheng and Jiang Yi, a performance that literally drove me to my grave, I gritted my teeth and began to pry her hand away, finger by finger. Don't call me mom, go find your Aunt Jiang. She staggered a couple of steps, her eyes sweeping over us. She roared, Mom, you've been corrupted by all these city women. She grabbed at my skirt. Looking utterly scandalized, just look at what you're wearing. You're 30 years old and still dressing like that. How revolting. The girl beside me pushed her hand away. What's wrong with being 30? Even if Sister Sun is 40, 50, or 100, she can wear a skirt if she wants to, and it's none of your business. You're so young, yet you reek of that prudish, sour attitude. It stinks. Another comrade glanced at her head and said disdainfully, she really stinks. You could smell that sour odor from a mile away. After all, Gunyeni was only 9 years old, and her eyes quickly welled up with tears. She turned to look at Gu Shisheng and said, her voice lacking conviction, Dad, you said before that their souls are impoverished and filthy, so they need all these material things to fill their pathetic little minds, right? Gu Shisheng lowered his eyes in embarrassment. The girl with braids rolled her eyes and leaned against my shoulder. Yeah. Not like you guys, who are satisfied with just a bit of book learning. Am I right, Sister Sun? I patted her head. You're right. As if provoked by my gesture, Gunyeni began to sob and wail. You're my mom. Why do you care so much about someone else? You can't touch them. You can only touch Xiaoyi. Gu Shisheng hurried over to cover her mouth, whispering, be good, Nieni, beg your mom to come back with us. She loves you the most. I sighed and said helplessly, Gu Shisheng, take her home. If you still want to make a decent life for yourself, go find some work. In this day and age, opportunities are everywhere. Don't get lost in your own self-indulgent romanticism. He looked at his own hands, his expression turning somewhat lost. Ah son, but these hands were meant to hold a brush. How could they do menial labor? Let's go back, please. We can live a good life just like we used to. If you don't like Jiang Yi, I'll go back and send her away immediately. I suppose there's no waking someone who's pretending to be asleep. I'll leave you with one last piece of advice. 2 lifetimes now. Wake up, you're not cut out to make a living with a pen. Then, she linked arms with a few young ladies and walked into the dance hall. Gu Shisheng lunged at me, only to be stopped at the door. I said, these 2 are beggars, don't let them in. Gu Shisheng's eyes instantly turned red with rage. Lu Sun, don't you forget, we're not divorced yet. How far do you think you can really run? My footsteps faltered for a moment. Right, if I don't get a divorce, he'll always be entitled to half of everything I earn. This gloom lingered all the way until work the next day. My boss noticed my listlessness and, after hearing the reason, dismissed it with a shrug, saying, oh, is that all? Haven't you heard about the newly revised marriage law? I'm not very well educated, so I was confused. My boss, who had been to school, told me. Under the new regulations, if the relationship has indeed broken down and mediation is ineffective, then divorce is granted. So, escaping this misery could be this simple. In my past life, I gave so much. In my despair, I even considered divorce. I couldn't think of anyone else to confide in, so I told my own child. But Gunyeni told me that divorce is difficult and troublesome, and that at my age, doing so would bring her shame. Decades passed, dark hair turned to silver. And that idea faded into the mists of time. Hey, Comrade Lu Sun, why are you crying? The boss was flustered and in a panic. I was taken aback for a moment. I wiped away my tears with my sleeve and forced a smile. No, it's nothing, I'm just so happy. I waited anxiously for the mediation result to come out. Besides the staff from the marriage office, my boss was also there. She took out a green booklet and waved it in front of my eyes. The process was a nightmare. I pulled a few strings and got it for you. My hands trembled as I took the green booklet from her, overwhelmed with the feeling of being reborn. In a way, I was finally free. Stepping out of the mediation room, I ran straight into Gu Shishing. His face was like thunder, as if I owed him a fortune. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice hoarse as he said, Sun, Niani is still so young. Do you really mean to abandon us both? I steadied my emotions, my face expressionless. I will send her the minimum required child support each month. As for the rest, you're on your own. He grabbed my arm. What about me? How am I supposed to go on living? My boss pulled me behind her, looking utterly bewildered. You have 2 hands and 2 feet. How can you not survive without a woman? Then, a sudden realization dawned on her. Oh, I see, a freeloader. Gu Shishing was cut to the quick. Every last shred of scholarly refinement gone. What the hell are you talking about? You shrew, these hands are meant for writing poetry and books. They're meant to follow in my ancestors' footsteps and serve as an official. The boss let out a snort of laughter. The college entrance exams were reinstated 2 years ago, weren't they? So, you couldn't get into university, but you're dead set on being a kept man. Well, I've certainly seen it all now. I gave her a thumbs up. Now that's a true scholar. Her words cut straight to the heart. Gu Shishing pointed at the boss and shouted angrily, it's the poisonous ideas from you women that have corrupted Lu Sun, otherwise, she'd be back in the village taking care of me and the kids. I slapped him. Shut your mouth, Gu Shishing, you're just as useless in this life as you were in the last. He covered his face, let out a low, bitter chuckle, and then suddenly kicked the iron door of the mediation room. What a load of legal bullshit. I never agreed to this divorce. The newly revised law is a complete violation of the fundamental moral principles. Several comrades scrambled to restrain him. Gu Shishing shouted at me, how can a wife leave without her husband's permission? I stared at him, suddenly overwhelmed by a sense of pity. In our past life, he prided himself on being an educated man, often calling me a relic of the old era who couldn't keep up with the times. But now it's clear that he is the real dregs of society. Without another word to him, I turned and walked away. Back at the factory, the boss called me into her office. Comrade Lu Sun, you understand, I have my conditions for helping you with the divorce. I nodded. If it weren't for her, I could never have managed it so smoothly on my own. She pulled out a few design sketches. Recognize these? I took a closer look. Hey, aren't these the ones I drew? The boss continued. A promising talent like you shouldn't be wasted in the day-to-day grind of the workshop. Tell you what, I'll fund your education. I'll send you out for some proper, systematic training. What do you think? Seeing me frozen in place, she continued, my hope is that the talents of the new generation of women should not stop here. They should venture into a much broader world. That is where we are truly meant to shine. Her words dropped into my mind like a stone, sending ripples through my thoughts. Well, not willing. I nearly dropped to my knees. Yes, of course I will. Hey now, why are you crying again? I wiped the corner of my eye, smearing the tear across the back of my hand. They're happy tears. After leaving Gu Shishing and Gunyeni, every single tear I shed was one of joy. It was still that same small leather suitcase, holding my meager belongings. Gu Shishing, having somehow gotten wind of the news, was waiting downstairs on the day I left. Ah Sun, he and Gunyeni each took one of my arms, pulling me from both sides. Their grimy hands soiled my pristine white shirt. I recoiled in disgust and pushed their hands away. Gu Shishing shed a few murky tears and choked out, Ah Sun, I was wrong. I've wronged you, for 2 lifetimes. Please, give me a chance to make it up to you. Don't go. Please don't leave me. Gunyeni also wailed, Wah, You're the best. Mom, Aunt Jiang only knows how to eat, drink, and have fun. She can't do any work. Let's go home, Mom, you and me, let's go back. At this point, I don't know what else to say. I just want to live my own life well, Mom. Just as a train whistle cut through the air, I sighed and said to the man before me, Gu Shishing, you know, the pace of life in the 80s wasn't actually that slow. In your past life, you could have gone to find Jiang Yi, but you never did. Because you were too attached to your comfortable existence, your longing for Jiang Yi, that unrequited love, became mere ornamentation for your so-called scholarly integrity. And what about me in our past life? Was I just supposed to sacrifice my entire existence for your so-called integrity? It's been 2 lifetimes now, just let me go. His hand remained clenched tightly. No, I don't want that. It was my mistake, my poor judgment. After 2 whole lifetimes, I finally realized. It's you I've loved most all along. I glanced at my watch. I was going to miss the bus. I roared, let go. They clung to me like 2 dead weights, dragging me down. Beep beep. A beam of headlights pierced the morning mist. The young women from the garment factory jumped down from the delivery truck. Sis son, we were worried you'd be held up, so we all came to see you off. With that, they hastily pushed Gu Shishing and Gu Nianyi aside. The truck honked again. The boss, sitting in the driver's seat, shouted, Lu Sun, are we going or not? I hurriedly jumped into the truck. We're going. The truck started moving, and the young women waved their hands in the morning breeze. Safe travels, sis son, take good care of yourself from now on, live for yourself. As the car slowly drove away, the boss handed me a handkerchief. Why are you crying happy tears again? I wiped away a tear. Maybe it's because I'm just too damn sexy, the boss chuckled. You mean sensitive, don't you? Sunlight filtered through the clouds, spilling onto the leather suitcase and glinting in golden specks. This departure marks my rebirth. A few years later, I returned to transfer my household registration. According to the locals, Gu Shishing and Jiang Yi had boasted about their family's factory, house, and savings, inviting others to seek refuge with them. But after Jiang Yi arrived, she didn't get to enjoy the good life for long. She even ended up being hounded by debt collectors over a few pieces of clothing. For a scholar, nothing is harder to let go of than one's pride. Jiang Yi also realized that Gu Shishing was taking far too long to bring me back. The family was on the brink of starvation, and so, she took the last few valuables from Gu Shishing's place and made a run for it. She'll be heading back to her hometown soon to marry a butcher. Stroking the trendy Hermes bag in my hands, I exchanged a few sighs with the folks from back home. As I trudged back through the muddy path to my car, I spotted a raving beggar in the field. There was something familiar about that figure. Upon taking a closer look, it turned out to be Gu Shishing. He was carrying a tattered cloth bag, inside of which were several heart-shaped stones. Muttering to himself, he said, Ah, my ancestor was a provincial scholar, and I too am destined to be a high official. Ah, I leaned against the tree, watching him calmly. Dad, stop wandering off. Dinner's almost ready. Gu Nianyi chased after him, spatula in hand. Look at them, under the weight of life's pressures. Not a shred of their former proud dignity remains to be found. All the affectations from their past lives were cured in one go. Gu Nianyi couldn't catch up. She took a couple of ragged breaths and turned around, her eyes meeting mine. She rubbed her eyes. Mom, it's me. Take me with you, please, take me. I want to go to the city too. I quickly got into the car, leaving her with a taste of exhaust fumes. Everything here gradually faded in my rearview mirror, growing more distant. The road ahead, stretching into the distance, was my path to glory. Story 2, Lin Xiaoman, you're just a cripple. How dare you compare yourself to Yuan? The moment before the crash, my husband's cold sneer still echoed in my ears. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn back to my senior year of high school. To that fateful rainy day when delivering his love letter ruined my life. In this life, I tore up the love letter he wrote for the school beauty right in front of everyone. Lu Mingchuan, we're through. 1. I'm dead. That was the first coherent thought. The blare of an ambulance siren pierced my ears. Above me, the car's roof was crumpled and twisted. Something warm trickled down from my forehead, blurring my vision. Lin Xiaoman, you're like a bad penny that keeps turning up. The voice came from the driver's seat. Lu Mingchuan, his tone dripping with the familiar contempt. You even have to cause trouble on the way to get a divorce. I wanted to argue back, but no sound would come out. My body felt pinned down by an immense weight, completely paralyzed. The sound of rain, car horns, and the distant shouts of passers-by all blended together and began to fade away. If you hadn't meddled and gotten into that accident delivering that stupid love letter, why would I have been forced to marry a cripple like you? Do you have any idea how my friends have mocked me all these years? His voice grew more and more distant. Now it's perfect, you're dead, and I can finally be with Yuan out in the open. I might as well tell you the truth. Yuan and I are already legally married overseas. Darkness swallowed consciousness. I thought that was the end, but when I opened my eyes again, sunlight was streaming through the classroom window, casting dappled light on the desk. I blinked, my gaze focusing on the open math exam paper in front of me, a practice test for the final year of high school. Xiao Man, do me a favor. A pink letter, folded into a heart, was pushed toward me, accompanied by a familiar voice. You absolutely have to give this to Su Yuan today. I looked up sharply and saw the face I thought I'd never want to see again in this lifetime. Lu Mingchuan at 18, my childhood friend and the very person who ruined my life in my past existence. He was looking at me with that ingratiating smile I could never refuse, just like he had every single time he needed a favor over the past decade. My voice caught in my throat, and my fingers trembled uncontrollably. What's wrong? He asked, tilting his head. His face, bathed in sunlight, was full of youthful vigor. It's just delivering a love letter. It's not like it's the first time. I'll buy you a drink tomorrow. Memories came flooding back. It was this love letter. It was this very day, in my past life, I delivered the love letter for him. On my way back, I was in a car accident, lost my right leg, missed the college entrance exam, and lost my chance to become a doctor, out of guilt. The Lu family forced Lu Mingchuan to marry me, but it ended up ruining both of our lives. Xiao Man, what are you spacing out for? Lu Mingchuan waved his hand in front of my eyes. School's almost over, you should head over soon. The math teacher was explaining the final problem on the podium. The classroom was thick with the stifling heat of early summer and the tense atmosphere before the college entrance exams. Looking around, every face was both familiar and strange. This was my senior year classroom. I had actually gone back 10 years in time. No, I heard my own voice, sounding eerily calm. You deliver it yourself. Lu Mingchuan froze, clearly not having expected my refusal. Come on, don't be like that. You know how terrifying our homeroom teacher is. If I get caught, I'm done for. You're a top student. All the teachers like you. Even if you get caught, it'll be fine. Under his hopeful gaze, I picked up the love letter, tore it in half, then into quarters, before crumpling it into a ball and tossing it into the trash can at the back of the classroom. Lin Xiaoman, have you lost your mind? Lu Mingchuan's face fell, his raised voice drawing sidelong glances from nearby classmates. I'm perfectly clear-headed, staring straight into his eyes. A lifetime's worth of pent-up anger and resentment churned in my chest. I remembered all the times he'd mocked me as a cripple in front of his friends. The times he'd abandoned me to go abroad chasing his first love, even getting married overseas, and the countless insults he'd hurled at my parents and family. Lu Mingchuan, as of today, we're done, you can clean up your own mess. The bell rang right on cue. I quickly packed my bag and, ignoring his stunned expression, bolted out of the classroom without a backward glance. The sunlight felt warm and real on my face. I took a deep breath, feeling the strong, healthy rhythm of my own steps. This wasn't a dream. I had truly been reborn, returned to the very day that would change my fate. This time, I would not repeat the same mistakes. The moment I pushed open the front door, my eyes instantly welled up with tears. Xiaoman, you're back. Mom peeked out from the kitchen, her face still free of the worry lines that caring for me would one day etch there. Dinner's almost ready, go wash your hands first. I stood rooted to the spot, drinking in the sight of this home that felt both familiar and strange. The calendar on the living room wall showed March 12, 2015. Mom's favorite pale blue curtains swayed gently in the breeze. A bowl of fresh fruit sat on the dining table. Every detail was so vividly alive. In my past life, after my amputation, my parents nearly went bankrupt trying to pay for my treatment. My mother's hair turned white overnight, and my father's back became hunched. Now, here they stand before me, healthy and whole, as if heaven has given me a second chance. What's wrong? Standing there in a daze, my mother wiped her hands and walked over, reaching out to feel my forehead. Are you feeling unwell? I threw my arms around her, burying my face in her shoulder, breathing in that familiar scent, a mix of faint cooking oil and laundry detergent. It's nothing, I just missed you. Miss me already? And you just left this morning. Mom chuckled, patting my back. Go wash your hands. I made your favorite, sweet and sour pork ribs. At dinner, I practically devoured every dish Mom had made, my appetite even surprising Dad. After the meal, I cleared the table without being asked. Then, under my parents' astonished gaze, I announced, starting today, I'm going all in to prepare for the college entrance exams. I might not have much time for chores. Finally seen the light, have you? Dad said with a smile, adjusting his glasses. All right then. Your mom and I will handle the housework. You just focus on your studies. Back in my room, I locked the door, threw myself onto the bed, and buried my face in the pillow. I let out a few silent screams before I finally calmed down. I had really been reborn. I was back in the most critical month before the college entrance exams. I rolled over and sat up, pulling all my textbooks and notes from my backpack and spreading them out across the entire desk, since fate had given me a second chance. I was determined to seize it. I would get into my dream school, Capital Medical University, and become a doctor. Opening my math notebook, I froze. The formulas and problem-solving methods I once knew by heart now looked strangely unfamiliar. I then opened my physics and chemistry textbooks, and the situation was even worse. Years of a miserable marriage and the self-doubt brought on by my disability, all that long stretch of time, had caused me to forget most of my high school knowledge. No way. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead, and my fingers trembled slightly. Rebirth gave me a healthy body and a second chance, but it didn't return my former knowledge. The college entrance exam is less than 3 months away. I took a deep breath, pulled out a brand new notebook, and started drafting a study plan. In my past life, I missed the exam due to a car accident. Later, I could only get into an ordinary university through self-study exams, majoring in a field I never liked. This time, I'm determined to ace the entrance exams and get into the best medical school. At 2 in the morning, I finally finished my detailed study schedule, planned down to the hour for every single day. My eyelids felt like lead weights, but I forced myself to open the math textbook and started reviewing from the very basics. Trigonometry. Showman, why are you still up? Mom gently knocked on my door. I'll go to bed right now, I called back, but I stubbornly finished the problem I was working on before finally switching off the desk lamp. Lying in bed, I replayed the events of the day at school. Lu Mingchuan's stunned expression flashed before my eyes, and a faint, vengeful satisfaction stirred in my heart. In my past life, I was always at his beck and call, even ruining my own life to deliver a love letter for him. Yet after we married, he took out all his bitterness and resentment on me. This time, I won't have anything more to do with you, I whispered into the darkness before falling into a deep sleep. The next morning, I arrived at the classroom half an hour earlier than usual. The morning sun streamed through the window, spilling over the empty desks. I took out my English vocabulary notebook and began to memorize the words. My classmates trickled in one by one, their expressions showing surprise at seeing me there so early. When Lu Mingchuan walked in, I didn't even look up, completely absorbed in my physics exercises. Xiao Man, he stood in front of my desk, his voice laced with clear displeasure. Aren't you going to explain what happened yesterday? I kept writing formulas, not even sparing him a glance. There's nothing to explain. What's wrong with you? He slammed his hand down on my notebook. Isn't this how it's always been? You run errands for me, and I buy you ice cream. I looked up at him. The face that once made my heart flutter now filled me with nothing but disgust. That was then. I'm studying for the Gaokao now. I don't have time for your childish games. The Gaokao, he scoffed. With your grades, you could get into a top-tier university without even trying. What's there to be nervous about? I yanked my notebook back with force. My life is none of your business. Lu Mingchuan's face darkened. He was about to say something when the homeroom teacher, Mr. Li, walked into the classroom. He had no choice but to slink back to his seat in frustration. During the morning classes, I could feel Lu Mingchuan glancing back at me repeatedly, but I never met his gaze. During the break, I seized every moment to review, even holding off on going to the bathroom, afraid of wasting a single second. The final bell rang, and I quickly packed my bag, ready to leave. Lu Mingchuan darted over and blocked my path. Let's walk home together, he said. No, I'm going to the library, I said, trying to sidestep past him. He grabbed my wrist. What's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly so cold? I thought we were best friends. I shook off his hand, my voice rising. I told you, I need to study. Please, just leave me alone. The remaining students in the classroom turned to look, and a murmur of whispers began. Lu Mingchuan's face flushed crimson, a flicker of anger flashing in his eyes. Lin Xiaoman, have you lost your mind? Think whatever you want, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and strode out of the classroom, my heart pounding wildly in my chest. In my past life, I was always so careful around him, terrified of upsetting him, but now, I could finally say no with a clear conscience. The library was so quiet you could hear the rustle of turning pages. I found a spot in the corner, spread out my books, and began to study. But before long, a figure sat down across from me. Thinking it was Lu Mingchuan coming to pester me again, I looked up impatiently. Chen Mo. I stared in surprise at the boy in front of me. He was the class monitor in charge of academics, a top student whose grade ranking never fell out of the top 3. He was usually quiet and kept almost entirely to himself. He pushed up his black-framed glasses and handed me a notebook with an expressionless face. "Mr. Lee asked me to give this to you." Puzzled, I took it and opened it up. Inside were neat, detailed biology notes covering all the key points for the college entrance exams, and even some extra material. "This, my notes," Chen Mo said simply. "Teacher Lee mentioned you're aiming for medical school." I stared at him in shock. How does Teacher Lee know that? I had only filled that in on my career planning form this morning. Chen Mo just shrugged and was already looking down at his own exercises. Clearly not intending to pursue the topic, I carefully leafed through the notes. The content was more systematic and easier to understand than the textbook, with key points and difficult sections highlighted in different colors. Thanks, and, please thank Mr. Lee for me too." Chen Mo nodded and didn't say anything more. We just studied quietly on our own like that until the library's closing bell rang. Over the next few days, Lu Mingchuan tried all sorts of tricks to get my attention, leaving my favorite bubble tea on my desk, even though I'd long since stopped liking that flavor. Laughing and joking loudly with friends right on my usual path after school, even getting mutual friends to ask why I'd had a sudden change of heart. I ignored it all, throwing myself completely into my studies. During the day, I paid close attention in every class, chased down teachers with questions between periods, and headed straight for the library after school. After getting home in the evening, I'd study until the early hours, pinching my thigh whenever I felt sleepy. In Friday's biology class, the teacher announced there would be a quiz next week. After class, I saw Chen Mo organizing his notes and mustered the courage to walk over. "Chen Mo, could I borrow your biology notes, just for the material on next week's quiz?" My voice trailed off as I spoke. In my past life, I never asked for help with my studies, but this is a special circumstance. He glanced up at me, pulled a folder from his backpack, and handed it over. "The latest version is in here. Thank you. I'll definitely return it on Monday." I accepted it as if it were a priceless treasure. "No rush." He paused. "Your study method has some issues." I froze. "What problem?" "You're pushing yourself too hard." Chen Mo's voice was calm. "The college entrance exam isn't something you can cram for overnight. The way you're burning the midnight oil now is actually hurting your efficiency." My face flushed with heat. How did he know I was staying up late? Were my dark circles that obvious? I just have a lot of catching up to do," I said in a low voice. Chen Mo looked at me for a moment, then said abruptly, "Saturday, 8 a.m., 3rd floor of the city library. I have compiled study guides for all the key subjects." I looked up in surprise, hardly believing my ears. Was Chen Mo asking me to study together? "Suit yourself." He had already turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, clutching my biology notes tightly, my heart racing for no apparent reason. This was a godsend. After school, just as I expected, Lu Mingchuan was waiting for me at the school gate again. This time, I pretended not to see him and walked straight to the bus stop. "Lin Xiaoman," he caught up and blocked my path. "What's going on with you? You've been like a completely different person this whole week. I've told you 100 times, I need to study." I tried to step around him. "Cut the crap." He raised his voice. "Is there someone else?" "It's Chen Mo, isn't it? You've been hanging around him all week." I stopped walking, turned to face him squarely, and said, "Lu Mingchuan, we're not a couple, and I don't owe you any explanations for what I do. Who I spend time with is my own business." He looked as if he'd been slapped. "We grew up together, and this is how you treat me." "It's precisely because I've known you for so long that I know exactly who you are," I said calmly. "Please don't disturb my studies anymore." With that, I turned and boarded the bus that had just arrived, leaving Lu Mingchuan standing there, utterly dumbfounded. Through the bus window, I watched his expression shift from shock to anger, and finally settle into a kind of bewildered confusion I had never seen on his face before. In my past life, I would have been anxious over his every mood swing. Now, I'd only feel a sense of release. As the bus pulled away from the stop, I took a deep breath, opened Chinmo's notebook, and was soon immersed in a sea of knowledge. This time, I won't give up my future for anyone. 3. At 7:40 on Saturday morning, I stood in front of the city library, nervously twisting the strap of my backpack. I was 20 minutes early, but I'd barely slept last night, my mind crowded with formulas and theorems. When the large clock in front of the library showed 7:50, I saw a familiar figure step off the bus. Chinmo was wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans. In the sunlight, his skin looked especially fair, and his eyes behind black-framed glasses widened slightly when he saw me. "Morning," he said as he walked up to me, offering a brief greeting. "Mornin', good morning," I stammered. "For some reason, I just happened to be in the area and got here a bit early," Chinmo nodded, not calling me out on my lie. His place and mine were in completely opposite directions. The library's air conditioning was cranked up high. I followed Chinmo up to the 3rd floor and we sat at a corner table by the window. He pulled a thick, neatly bound stack of papers from his backpack and slid it across the table to me. "These are my notes on the key points and common question types for all the Gaokao subjects," he said, his voice low as if to avoid disturbing the other patrons. "Take a look first, and ask me if you have any questions." I opened to the first page, which was densely yet neatly covered with a concise summary of all the key mathematical concepts. Important formulas were highlighted in red, common pitfalls were marked with a yellow highlighter, and there were even small penciled-in notes in the margins. This was better than any review guide you could buy. "This is incredibly thorough," I said, looking up with genuine admiration. "How long did it take you to put this together?" Chinmo looked down, flipping through his own book, the tips of his ears turning slightly pink. "It wasn't long. For the next 3 hours, we were absorbed in our own studies. Occasionally, when I came across something I didn't understand, I'd lightly tap my finger on the point in question. Chinmo would then put down his pen and explain it in detail in a voice only the two of us could hear, continuing until I grasped it completely. Around noon, my stomach betrayed me with a loud rumble. Chinmo glanced up at me, then pulled 2 rice balls and a bottle of water from his backpack. "Here, eat," he said, sliding one of the rice balls toward me. "They're from the cafeteria, nothing special, but they'll fill you up." I was taken aback. You planned for this." Chinmo had already unwrapped it and taken a bite. "Figured you'd be hungry." Holding the warm rice ball, a wave of warmth washed over me. In my past life, I had almost no impression of Chinmo, only knowing he was a top student who kept to himself. Now it seemed that beneath that aloof exterior lay a surprisingly thoughtful person. "Thanks," I said softly, taking a bite. The savory aroma of seaweed filled my mouth. "It's really good." The corner of Chinmo's mouth lifted slightly. It might not have been a full smile, but it was enough to brighten his entire face. We kept studying through the afternoon. It wasn't until the library's closing music began to play that I realized a whole day had slipped by. My notebook was filled with newly learned problem-solving techniques and key points. My head felt a bit heavy from absorbing so much information, yet my heart was completely full. "Will you come again next Saturday?" Chinmo asked suddenly as he was packing his bag. I looked up and met his gaze. Behind his glasses, his eyes were clear and calm, not a hint of jest in them. "Come on," I answered without hesitation. 8 o'clock, the usual spot. He slung his backpack over his shoulder. "Don't forget your water bottle. There's hot water in the library." I nodded, watching him walk away. A smile crept onto my lips before I could stop it. For my first weekend after being reborn, I had somehow ended up as Chinmo's study partner. When I got to school on Monday, I listened to the lectures with more focus than usual. With Chinmo's notes and explanations, the previously hazy concepts became crystal clear. During breaks, I stopped chatting with classmates and instead used the time to review the last lesson or preview the next one. Wednesday afternoons P.E. class was free time, while most students went to play basketball or sat in the shade chatting. I slipped back to the classroom, pulled out my physics workbook, and started grinding through problems. "I knew I'd find you here," a voice came from the doorway. I looked up and saw our class monitor, Li Xiaoqing, leaning against the doorframe, twirling a set of keys in her hand. The P.E. monitor sent me to get the spare whistle. She walked in, glancing curiously at my workbook. "Working this hard, that's not like you." I just smiled without answering. In my past life, Li Xiaoqing and I weren't particularly close. She was the cheerful, outgoing type with lots of friends, while I only ever orbited around Lu Mingchuan. You know, Lu Mingchuan has been asking about you these past few days, Li Xiaoqing said, pulling the whistle from the teacher's desk drawer as if it were just a casual remark. He genuinely seems confused about why you've suddenly started ignoring him. I put down my pen and sighed. I just want to focus on my studies, that's all there is to it. Oh, come on, Li Xiaoqing suddenly leaned in, lowering her voice. The whole class can see there's something going on between you and Chen Mo. Someone saw you two studying together in the library last Saturday. That's headline news in our class. My face flushed instantly. We were just reviewing together, that's all. Chen Mo never studies with anyone. Li Xiaoqing said meaningfully. Last year, Lu Ting, who ranked second in our grade, tried to ask him for help. He just handed her a reference book and sent her on her way. I didn't know how to respond, so I just lowered my head and went back to my problems. Li Xiaoqing didn't press further. She whistled and left the classroom. After school, I had just stepped out of the school gate when I heard someone call my name from behind. Turning around, I saw Lu Mingchuan running towards me. His basketball jersey soaked through with sweat. Clearly, he'd just finished playing. Xiaoman, wait up, he panted, blocking my path. Our class is playing Class 7 in a basketball game this Saturday. You'll come watch. Right, I frowned. I told you I need to study, just for an hour. Lu Mingchuan clasped his hands together in a pleading gesture. You know how important this game is. Those guys from Class 7 have always looked down on us. This time, Lu Mingchuan, I cut him off. I really don't have time. His expression instantly fell. Ever since Chen Mo showed up, you've been a different person. What's so great about him? He just walks around with a sour face, never says a word, like some kind of bookworm. Don't you dare talk about him like that. My voice rose sharply, drawing glances from passing classmates. Chen Mo is 100 times better than you. At least he knows how to work for his future, instead of spending all day trying to suck up to Su Yuan. Lu Mingchuan's face instantly went pale. How do you know about Su Yuan? That's when I realized I'd slipped up. In my past life, I only knew Su Yuan because I delivered his love letter for him. In this life, I shouldn't know her at all. I heard it from a classmate, I said hastily, covering up. Anyway, I'm not going on Saturday. Find someone else to cheer you on. With that, I turned and walked away, my heart pounding in my chest. Lu Mingchuan called after me a few times, but I didn't look back. On Saturday morning, Chen Mo and I met as planned to study at the library. During the lunch break, I couldn't resist checking my phone and found the class group chat flooded with photos from the basketball game. Pictures of Lu Mingchuan looking dashing on the court were everywhere, but the ones of Su Yuan and a few other girls cheering excitedly on the sidelines were particularly eye-catching. You're distracted, Chen Mo said abruptly. I quickly locked my phone screen. Sorry, he slid over a scrap of paper with a complex physics problem written on it. Try this. I recognized it as last year's notoriously difficult college entrance exam finale. Taking a deep breath, I focused and began working on the solution. When I finally found the breakthrough, I let out a quiet, excited cheer and looked up to meet Chen Mo's approving gaze. That sense of accomplishment was more thrilling than any roar from a basketball game. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a text from Li Xiaoqing. Lu Mingchuan got hurt during the game. He's in the school infirmary, and he keeps asking for you. I stared at that message for a long time, memories from my past life flooding back. Every time Lu Mingchuan was hurt or sick, I was always the first one by his side. I remember in our second year of high school when he had a high fever. I skipped class to take care of him at his place all day, even copying all his homework for him. Yet, after we were married, when I was in agony with leg pain, he hung up on me because he was going shopping with Su Yuan. What's wrong? Chen Mo noticed my odd behavior. I showed him the text message and said with a wry smile. The old me would have rushed over there immediately. He thought for a moment, then suddenly asked, and what about the current you? Do you want to go? No. My reply was firm and direct. He has so many friends. He won't miss me. Besides, I pointed at the thick stack of review materials in front of me. We have more important things to do. A faint smile touched Chen Mo's lips as he handed me a biology notebook. Let's keep going. When I got home that evening, the class group chat was still buzzing about the day's competition. Piecing together the conversations, I figured out what happened. Lu Mingchuan had sprained his ankle during the match. Su Yuan half-heartedly helped him to the infirmary, but soon made an excuse and left him there alone. I heard he was really down. kept asking why no one stayed with him. I closed the group chat without saying a word. In my past life, my heart would have ached for him, and I'd have called to comfort him immediately, but now, I just see it as karma, a taste of his own medicine, letting him experience what it's like to have no one care. On Monday, Lu Mingchuan's ankle was still bandaged. I deliberately avoided his gaze and went straight to my seat. Between classes, I noticed him trying to catch my eye a few times, but I pretended not to see and dodged him every time. I was in the cafeteria at lunch, head down and focused on my meal, when a tray suddenly clattered onto the table opposite me. I looked up to see Chen Mo sitting down, his face expressionless. I was so startled I nearly choked. "Is this seat taken?" he asked. Even though there were plenty of empty tables all around us. "And no, it's free," I stammered, shaking my head quickly. We ate our meals in quiet, neither of us speaking, but the silence wasn't awkward. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, and he'd give a slight nod before returning to his food. This simple, natural way of being together gave me a strange sense of peace. Well, since when did our ice-cold top student start eating with other people? A teasing voice called out from behind me. I turned around and saw Su Yuan standing there with her two best friends, all wearing smiles I couldn't quite decipher. Su Yuan was truly beautiful, with big eyes, a delicate face, and sleek, dark hair that fell to her shoulders. She was the dream girl for many of the boys at school. "None of your business," I said coldly, surprising even myself with the directness of my retort. In my past life, I had always felt inferior in front of Su Yuan, too timid to even speak. Su Yuan clearly hadn't expected me to respond like that. After a brief pause, she forced a smile and said, "Lin Xiaoman, I hear you've been studying really hard lately, trying to outdo our Chen Mo. Are you, our Chen Mo?" I raised an eyebrow, noticing Chen Mo's own brow furrow in response. "Oh, just a figure of speech," Su Yuan said, tossing her hair. "Anyway, Lu Mingchuan asked me to tell you he needs to talk. He'll be waiting for you behind the gym after school." "I'm busy," I refused flatly. Su Yuan pursed her lips. "Suit yourself. But he's in a pretty bad way right now. Hurt his foot with no one to look after him. Doesn't even have anyone to copy his homework for him." "Then you go take care of him," I said, putting down my chopsticks. Su Yuan snorted dismissively. "I don't have time for him. I wouldn't even bother speaking up for him if I didn't feel sorry for the guy." With that, she turned and walked off with her girlfriends in tow. I turned to look at Chen Mo and found him staring right at me, his expression unreadable. "What's wrong?" I asked, feeling a bit uneasy. "Nothing," he said, adjusting his glasses. "It's just that you're different from what I'd heard." "What was I like in the rumors?" I asked curiously. Chen Mo thought for a moment. "Quiet, introverted. Always following Lu Mingchuan around, like his little shadow." That description struck a painful chord. In my past life, I was exactly like that. I made Lu Mingchuan the center of my world and completely lost myself. "People change," I said softly. Chen Mo nodded, then suddenly pulled a sheet of paper from his backpack and handed it to me. "I've highlighted the key areas for next week's mock exam." I took the paper, and a wave of warmth washed over me. After my rebirth, I seem to have found people who truly respect me, not those who treat me like a disposable convenience, but those willing to walk alongside me. After school, I deliberately took the long way around to avoid the gym, only to be cornered right at the school gate by a limping Lu Mingchuan. "Why didn't you come?" he demanded, his eyes bloodshot. "I waited for you for an hour." "I told you I was busy," I said, trying to step around him. He grabbed my wrist. "Is it because of Chen Mo? You like him, don't you?" "Let go." I struggled to break free. "Who I like is none of your business." "How is it none of my business?" Lu Mingchuan's voice trembled in a way I'd never heard before. "We grew up together. I thought we, thought what?" I sneered. "Thought I'd always follow you around, at your beck and call, do your homework, deliver love letters for you, do anything you asked." He froze, his hand going slack. I didn't mean it like that. Lu Mingchuan. I took a deep breath. "From now on, you're responsible for your own life. I won't waste another minute of mine on you." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him standing alone at the school gate. The setting sun stretched his shadow out long and solitary, but I didn't look back, for, in the week leading up to the third mock exam, my nerves were stretched as tight as a bowstring. I slept only 4 hours a day, spending every other moment, aside from eating and attending school, on studying. I could power through half a set of multiple-choice questions during a 10-minute break, hide in a corner of the library to memorize English essay templates during lunch, and even listened to my own recordings of key concepts while walking. On Wednesday evening, I was hunched over my desk, wrestling with a particularly stubborn physics problem, when the letters and numbers in front of me suddenly began to warp and blur. I blinked, and my vision snapped back into focus, only to grow hazy again less than a minute later. A throbbing pain pulsed at my temples, like someone was beating a drum inside my head. "Shaman, have some milk." Mom pushed the door open, placed a warm glass of milk beside my hand, and looked at me with concern. "You look pale." "Thanks, Mom, I'm fine." I managed a weak smile, took the milk, and had a sip. The warm liquid slid down my throat, offering a momentary respite from the discomfort. Mom reached out and touched my forehead. "You've been studying all day, take a break." "I can't." I shook my head. "The third mock exam is next week. I have to." My words cut off abruptly. The milk glass in front of me suddenly doubled in my vision. My hand trembled uncontrollably, and the glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor with a crack, milk splattering everywhere. "Shaman," Mom cried out in alarm, immediately crouching down to check if I was hurt. I wanted to say I was fine, but the moment I opened my mouth, tears welled up without warning. Then came the second drop, the third. Soon, I was sobbing like a lost child, all the pent-up pressure and fear flooding out in a torrent. "I can't remember. All those formulas, all that material." I choked out between sobs, my vision blurring with tears. "I'm scared. Scared I'll fail. Scared of making the same mistakes all over again." Mom pulled me into a hug, gently patting my back. "Oh, sweetheart. It's just one exam, just do your best. Don't put so much pressure on yourself." I cried on my mom's shoulder for a long time, until the tears ran dry and only ragged, hiccuping breaths remained. She cleaned up the spilled milk from the floor and insisted I take a hot bath and get to bed early. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling as my emotions gradually settled. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text from Chen Mo. "Don't come too early tomorrow morning. The library doesn't open until 8. I stared at this seemingly ordinary message for a long time before it suddenly dawned on me. He must have noticed I wasn't in a good state and was using this as a way to let me sleep in a little longer. I replied with a simple okay, then buried my face in the pillow, a smile unconsciously curling at the corner of my mouth. The next day, I slept 2 hours later than usual and felt noticeably more refreshed. When I arrived at the classroom, Chen Mo was already at his desk, reading. I set down my backpack, hesitated for a moment, and then walked over to his table. "Thank you," I whispered. He glanced up at me, gave a nod, then pulled a folded piece of paper from a drawer and handed it to me. "Take a look at this." I unfolded it to find multiple solutions to a math problem, each one explained in meticulous detail. Notes in the margins indicated which method was best suited for different scenarios. "If you get nervous during the exam, stick with the method you know best. Don't try anything new." He said this without looking at me, his voice calm, yet it made my eyes sting. I clutched the paper tightly. "I will." On the day of the third mock exam, the weather was unusually muggy. Sitting in the exam hall, my palms were sweating so much I had to keep wiping them with a tissue. The moment the test papers were handed out, I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. The first subject was Chinese, my strong suit. The essay topic was choice. I wrote that piece almost as if guided by memories and insights from a past life, my pen scratching softly against the paper as emotions poured out. I tackled the math, English, and science comprehensive exams one problem at a time. When I got stuck, I skipped it, finished all the ones I knew, and then came back to think about the tough ones. The method Chen Mo taught me worked like a charm. It wasn't about perfection, just about performing consistently. When the final bell rang for the last exam, I put down my pen and let out a long sigh of relief. Whatever the outcome, I had given it my all. 3 days later, the results were posted. I stood before the class ranking board, unable to believe my eyes. Lin Xiaoman. Total score 689, third in the year. My name was printed right there, following Chen Mo and Yang Yi, having jumped over 20 places since the last exam. "Oh my god, Lin Xiaoman, you're amazing." Li Xiaoqing patted my shoulder from behind. "How did you suddenly do so well?" Before I could even answer, a crowd of classmates had already gathered around, all chattering at once, asking how I had studied and if I had any secret methods. I stood there, flustered and unsure what to do. When my gaze inadvertently met Chen Mo's, who was standing on the outskirts of the crowd, he gave me a slight nod, the faintest hint of a curve at the corner of his mouth. I just did a few more practice problems," I mumbled in response to my classmates' questions. when I suddenly saw Lu Mingchuan standing not far away, his face dark as he stared in our direction. His rank had fallen outside the top 250 in our grade, which in the fiercely competitive college entrance exam landscape meant he might not even get into a top-tier university. After the crowd had mostly dispersed, Lu Mingchuan blocked my path. "Xiao Man, congratulations." He forced a smile. "I always knew you were smart." "Thanks," I replied curtly, ready to walk away. "Wait," he grabbed my wrist. I need to ask you a favor." I pulled my hand back. "What is it?" "My grades, you've seen them." He looked down at the ground, his foot scuffing the floor nervously. "Could you help me study, like we used to?" In my past life, I did often tutor him, even sacrificing my own study time to organize notes and explain his mistakes. And how did he repay me? In every argument after we married, he'd sneer, "Who do you think you are? If my parents hadn't forced me, I'd never have married a bookworm like you." "Sorry, I don't have time." I turned to leave. "Just 1 week, no, even 3 days," he pleaded, hurrying after me. "For the sake of all our years growing up together, Lu Mingchuan," I stopped and looked him straight in the eye. "Do you know why I came in third? For the past month, I've been studying until dawn every single day. I've given up all entertainment and socializing, and I've even felt like talking to you was a waste of time. Do you really think I'd throw all that effort away just to help you?" His face flushed bright red instantly. How could you become so selfish?" "It's not selfishness. It's self-respect," I said calmly. "You're the one who hasn't been studying. What gives you the right to demand that others sacrifice for you?" With that, I walked away without looking back. My heart was pounding in my chest, but not from nervousness or fear. It was a feeling of liberation. I had finally said the words I couldn't bring myself to say in my past life. After school, as I was packing my bag to head to the library, an unexpected figure appeared in the classroom doorway. "Su Yuan." "Lin Xiaoman, can we talk for a moment?" she asked, her voice surprisingly friendly, a complete contrast to the last time I'd seen her in the cafeteria. I looked at her warily. "What is it?" She walked in and sat down in the seat in front of me. "First, I want to apologize for my attitude in the cafeteria last time. I was in a bad mood." I nodded without a word, waiting for her to continue. "Secondly," Su Yuan bit her lower lip, "I wanted to ask for your advice on how you study. My grades have always been average, and I really admire how quickly you've improved." I looked at her in surprise. In my past life, the Su Yuan I remembered was an aloof campus belle who hardly ever initiated conversations with anyone outside Lu Mingchuan's circle of admirers, let alone asked for academic help. I just do a lot of practice problems and review my mistakes carefully," I answered cautiously. "Could you go into more detail?" Su Yuan pulled out a small notebook, looking ready to take notes. "Like your schedule, what reference books you use." Seeing the sincerity in her eyes, I let my guard down and briefly shared some study methods. As we talked, I realized Su Yuan was actually quite sharp. She grasped concepts instantly. She probably just hadn't applied herself to studying before. "By the way," Su Yuan suddenly asked as our conversation was winding down, "are you close with Chen Mo?" My heart skipped a beat. "It's fine. We've just studied together a few times. He's my cousin," Su Yuan said with a smile. "We have different last names, but his father and my mother are siblings." My eyes widened. "What? He didn't tell you?" Su Yuan also looked surprised. "I thought you two were close." "We're just study partners." I struggled to keep my voice steady, while a storm of emotions raged inside me. Chen Mo and Su Yuan are cousins. Did Chen Mo know about Lu Mingchuan and Su Yuan in my past life? Did he know what happened to me? Chen Mo is actually a good person, he just isn't very good at expressing himself. Su Yuan continued. "He mentioned you the other day, said you were special." My heart skipped a beat. What did he say about me?" "He said you study really hard and have a unique way of thinking." Su Yuan blinked. Hearing that kind of praise from him is rare. He hardly ever talks about anyone. I didn't know how to respond, so I pretended to organize my school bag to hide the heat in my face. "Oh, by the way," Su Yuan stood up to leave, "Lu Mingchuan has been pestering me lately, saying I need to take responsibility for him. It's so annoying. Do you know what's going on?" My hands paused. "Take responsibility? Last time he hurt his foot, I reluctantly helped him to the infirmary, and now he's latched onto me." Su Yuan rolled her eyes. "He says since I took care of him, I should keep doing it. It's completely ridiculous." It suddenly hit me. The memory of Lu Mingchuan and Su Yuan getting their marriage certificate abroad in my past life. I'd always assumed they were deeply in love, but judging by Su Yuan's tone now, that didn't seem to be the case at all. You don't like him, I ventured cautiously. Lu Mingchuan, Su Yuan scoffed. What does he have going for him besides being decent looking? His grades are average. He's mediocre at sports. And he's always got this inflated sense of self-importance. I plan to study abroad in the future. There's no way anything could happen between us. Her words struck me like a sledgehammer to the chest. If Su Yuan never liked Lu Mingchuan in the first place, then why did they get married abroad in their past life? Did he force her into it, or did he trick her? Lin Xiaoman, are you okay? Su Yuan looked at me, puzzled. I'm fine. I forced a smile, just a bit tired. Then you should get some rest early, Su Yuan said sincerely. Thank you for sharing your study methods. They were really helpful. Watching her walk away, a tumult of emotions churned within me. In my past life, I had seen Su Yuan as a romantic rival and harbored hatred for her for years, but now, it seems she might have been one of Lu Mingchuan's victims as well. This realization caused most of my hostility towards Su Yuan to melt away. Over the weekend, Chen Mo and I were studying at the library as usual. Several times, I wanted to ask him about Su Yuan, but I couldn't find the right words. It wasn't until our afternoon break that I finally couldn't hold back any longer. Chen Mo, Su Yuan said you two are cousins. His hand paused on the page, and he looked up at me. Why didn't you tell me? I never found the right moment, he said, adjusting his glasses. Besides, is it really that important? I thought about it. It wasn't important, really, just surprising, but another question lingered in my mind, refusing to go away. So, do you know that Lu Mingchuan likes Su Yuan? Chen Mo's expression turned a bit odd. I know, a lot of people in the whole school know. Su Yuan says she doesn't like Lu Mingchuan. She really doesn't, Chen Mo said, closing his book. She likes smart, ambitious people. Lu Mingchuan doesn't meet her standards. Thank you, Chen Mo, I said, my gratitude sincere and sudden. For what? For everything, I said with a smile. Your notes, your study methods. The tips of Chen Mo's ears flushed slightly. He lowered his head and opened his book. Let's get back to studying. The college entrance exam is only a month away. I nodded and dove back into the sea of practice problems, yet my mind was calmer and more resolute than ever before. 5. On Monday morning of the second week after the third mock exam results were posted, a subtle tension hung in the air of the classroom. During the break, I noticed several classmates glancing repeatedly at Chen Mo and me, then huddling together to whisper. Li Xiaoqing took advantage of Chen Mo's absence to sidle up to my desk with a conspiratorial air. Xiaoman, you two need to be careful, she whispered, lowering her voice. Lu Mingchuan went to see Teacher Li after school yesterday. He said you and Chen Mo are dating too young and it's ruining the class atmosphere. The pen in my hand nearly clattered to the floor. What? He made it sound so convincing. With all these details about you going to the library together every day and having solo dates on weekends, Li Xiaoqing pursed her lips in disdain. Everyone knows he's just jealous you get good grades and you're close with Chen Mo. My fists clenched, nails digging deep into my palms. That was Lu Mingchuan from my past life for you. The moment he sensed even a hint of me slipping from his control, he'd find a way to sabotage it. I just never expected him to resort to such a childish trick. Thanks for the heads up, I said to Li Xiaoqing, forcing a smile, but we really were just studying together. Of course I know that, Li Xiaoqing said, patting my shoulder, but Mr. Li might want to have a word with you both. Just be prepared. The class bell rang, and Mr. Li walked into the classroom carrying a stack of test papers. I stole a glance at Lu Mingchuan. He sat ramrod straight, a smug smile playing on his lips. Every now and then, he'd glance back at me, his eyes full of provocation. Before I hand out the test papers, I have a few words to say. Mr. Li set down the stack of papers, his gaze sweeping across the classroom before finally settling on Lu Mingchuan. Recently, some students have brought it to my attention that there are instances of puppy love in our class. The classroom immediately erupted in a wave of murmurs. I felt my face grow hot. Chen Mo, however, remained expressionless, though the pen in his hand paused for a fraction of a second. In my opinion, Mr. Li continued, his voice steady and firm, during this critical sprint towards the college entrance exams, every student's primary focus should be on their own studies, not on passing judgment on the normal interactions of their peers. The smile froze on Lu Mingchuan's face. Some students would be better off focusing on their own papers instead of watching others, said Mr. Li, pulling a test from the stack. Take this third mock exam, for example. Someone dropped from the top 100 in the grade to outside the top 200, yet they still have the energy to worry about whether others are going to the library. The eyes of the entire class snapped toward Lu Mingchuan. His face flushed a deep crimson in an instant, the veins in his neck standing out clearly. "I'll hand back the exams now, Mr. Li said, offering no further comment as he began calling names. Chen Mo. 148 points, first in the grade. As Chen Mo stepped forward to collect his paper, Mr. Li gave his shoulder a pat. "Keep it up." Lin Xiaoman, 143 points, third in the grade. As I walked up to the teacher's desk, Ms. Li gave me a slight smile. "That's a big improvement." I took the test paper, and the weight in my heart finally lifted. As I walked back to my seat, my eyes accidentally met Lu Mingchuan's. His were burning with anger and resentment, but I simply looked away calmly. The bell rang for the end of class, and students trickled out of the classroom to get lunch. I deliberately took my time packing up, only getting up after everyone had left. To my surprise, Lu Mingchuan suddenly blocked my path at a corner in the hallway. "Happy now?" he spat through gritted teeth. "The whole class is laughing at me." "You brought this on yourself," I said coldly. "Chen Mo and I are just study partners. What gives you the right to slander us?" "Study partners?" Lu Mingchuan sneered. "The whole class can see he has a thing for you. So what?" I met his gaze directly. "Who I spend time with is my business. It's none of your concern. You." He grabbed my wrist sharply. "Lin Xiaoman, you've changed. You would never have treated me like this before." "Let go." I struggled free with force. "Lu Mingchuan, wake up. I'm not that silly girl who revolved around you anymore. I have my own life, my own goals, and you." I gave him a deliberate once-over. "You can't even pass the third mock exam, and you still have the nerve to meddle in other people's business." His face instantly turned deathly pale, as if he'd been stabbed in the chest. I turned and walked away, my heart pounding wildly, yet my steps were unwaveringly firm. Rounding the corner of the hallway, I nearly collided with someone. Chen Mo. He was leaning against the wall, holding 2 workbooks. Having clearly overheard the entire conversation, "Sorry," I mumbled, lowering my head in embarrassment. "No need to apologize." He handed me one of the workbooks. "Still going to the library this weekend?" I looked up at him. The sunlight streaming through the corridor window fell upon him, outlining a bright silhouette. His expression remained calm, but his eyes held a warm glow I had never seen before. "I'll go." I took the exercise book, a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. "Of course I'll go." We walked side by side back to the classroom for evening self-study. Neither of us mentioned what had just happened. Under the astonished gazes of our classmates, we calmly and confidently returned to our seats. Nothing and no one can stand in the way of my goal now. 6. In the 2 weeks leading up to the college entrance exams, the air was thick with tension and anticipation. The classroom was devoid of idle chatter and horseplay. Even during breaks, the only sounds were the rustling of pages and the scratching of pens. I buried myself in a sea of practice questions, grinding through 3 past exam papers a day, compiling an error log, and memorizing key concepts. The notes Chen Mo had given me were worn soft at the edges, densely covered with my own annotations. "Lin Xiaoman, the homeroom teacher wants to see you in the office." Class monitor Li Xiaoqing called out from the doorway. I put down my pen, rubbed my sore wrist, and headed for the teacher's office. On the way, I passed the infirmary. The door was ajar, and I caught a glimpse of Lu Mingchuan sitting inside. The school nurse was taking his blood pressure. His face was pale, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, and he looked utterly exhausted. Ever since the results of the 3rd mock exam came out, Lu Mingchuan's condition had been going downhill. I heard his parents were extremely unhappy with his grades and had hired 3 different tutors to coach him in rotation, but it was barely making a difference. A few times, when I was studying late in the library, I saw him running alone on the sports field, frantically working off his pent-up emotions. "Reporting in," I said softly as I knocked on the office door. "Come in, Ms. Li." My homeroom teacher looked up and smiled when she saw me. "Lin Xiaoman, have a seat." I sat in the chair opposite her and noticed my college preference form spread out on the desk. The first choice field clearly read Clinical Medicine, Capital Medical University. "I've reviewed your application choices. Very ambitious." Ms. Li adjusted her glasses. "With your current grades, as long as you perform as expected, getting into Capital Medical University shouldn't be a problem." I nodded, my heart racing. The dream from my past life finally had a chance to come true in this one. "However, Mr. Li," changed his tone, I've heard you've been pushing yourself very hard lately. Some classmates mentioned you often stay at the library until closing and are the first one in the classroom in the morning. I pursed my lips. The college entrance exam is just around the corner. I want to give it one more push. Hard work is good, but it needs to be in moderation, Mr. Lee's voice softened. Health is the foundation of everything, especially since you want to study medicine. You should understand that principle better than anyone. I looked down at my hands. The knuckles were slightly reddened from writing for long hours, and my fingernails were cut very short. I understand, teacher. I'll make sure to get some rest. Oh, that reminds me, said Teacher Lee, as if something had just occurred to him. Lu Mingchuan's parents came to see me yesterday. They were hoping you could tutor him. I know you two grew up together. I looked up sharply. Teacher, I refuse. Teacher Lee seemed taken aback by my bluntness. His situation is quite difficult, you know. His grades have been slipping steadily. Teacher, I took a deep breath. It's not that I'm unwilling to help a classmate, but we're in the final sprint now. Every minute is precious. Lu Mingchuan has tutors and his parents' support, while the only person I can rely on is myself. Ms. Lee looked at me for a long time, then finally nodded. You're right. I wasn't thinking it through properly. Focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. I believe you can achieve a great score. Leaving the office, I let out a long sigh of relief. In my past life, I would have agreed to such a request without a second thought, even feeling it was my duty. But now, I've finally learned to put my own needs first. On my way home from school, I was stopped at the school gate by Lu Mingchuan's parents. Xiaoman, dear, I'm begging you, said Lu Mingchuan's mother, her eyes reddening as she held my hand. Mingchuan's grades are so poor he might not even get into a second-tier university. Please, help him. For the sake of all the years you've grown up together. I gently withdrew my hand. Auntie, I'm sorry, but I really don't have the time. We can pay. Lu Mingchuan's father chimed in urgently. 200 an hour, no, 300. I shook my head. It's not about the money. The college entrance exam is just around the corner, and I need to focus all my energy on my own preparation. How can you be so selfish, Mrs. Lu's voice suddenly turned shrill. Mingchuan has always been so good to you, protecting you since you were children, and this is how you repay him. I looked at her quietly, suddenly remembering what she said to me in my past life. After my amputation, when she visited me in the hospital. Xiaoman, don't you worry, our Lu family will take responsibility. Mingchuan will take care of you for the rest of your life. Back then, I thought it was concern, only later did I understand it was just guilt and charity. After the marriage, they allowed Lu Mingchuan to subject me to emotional abuse, and even repeatedly suggested I become a surrogate mother. Ha, how utterly ridiculous. Auntie, I said calmly, Lu Mingchuan has professional tutors. I'm just a student. You should trust the professionals, not pin your hopes on me. With that, I gave a slight bow, turned, and walked away, ignoring their shouts behind me. It wasn't until I rounded the corner that I realized my hands were trembling. I had to stop and take several deep breaths to steady myself. When I got home, Mom was in the kitchen preparing dinner. I set down my backpack and, after a moment's hesitation, told her about running into Lu Mingchuan's parents. Mom put down the kitchen knife and wiped her hands. They called me this afternoon, too. What? My eyes widened. Mom sighed. I turned them down flat. Your only job right now is to focus on your own studies. How could you possibly have time to tutor someone else? I walked over and hugged her. Thanks, Mom. Oh, sweetie, Mom said, patting my back. I was wrong before, always telling you to look after Mingchuan, thinking a girl should be understanding and accommodating. I see now that your first responsibility is to your own life. My nose stung, and I buried my face in her shoulder. My mother from my past life had held me just like this, crying I'm sorry after my amputation, but by then, it was all too late. 7. After dinner, I got a call from Chen Mo, asking me to meet him on the school rooftop. It was the first time we were meeting somewhere other than our usual study spot in the library. I was a bit puzzled, but I went to meet him as agreed. It was an early summer night, a gentle breeze drifted across the rooftop, and the city lights in the distance twinkled like stars. Chen Mo was leaning against the railing, his head tilted back, gazing at the night sky. You're here, he said, turning to look at me as he heard my footsteps. What's up? I walked over to him and asked curiously. He handed me a bottle of warm milk. Relax, you've been wound up too tight lately. I took the milk and took a small sip. The warm liquid slid down my throat, soothing the weariness of the day. Thanks, I smiled at him. I am a bit tired. Look, Chen Mo suddenly pointed at the sky. The Big Dipper. I followed his finger and saw 7 bright stars forming the shape of a ladle in the night sky. That's the constellation Aquila over there. Chen Mo's voice was especially gentle in the night air. The brightest star in the middle is Altair. I looked at him in surprise. You study astronomy. I look at them now and then, he said, adjusting his glasses. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me stargazing. He'd say the universe is vast, and human worries are small in comparison. I looked up at the vast expanse of stars and suddenly felt my own anxieties and pressures were truly insignificant. No matter what the results of the college entrance exam were, this wouldn't be the end of my life's journey. Chen Mo, I asked softly, why do you want to study medicine? He was silent for a moment. My mother had a congenital heart condition. She passed away last year. That's when I decided I wanted to become a cardiac surgeon. My heart clenched. I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's all right, he said, shaking his head. What about you? Why surgery? I gazed at the distant city lights as memories from my past life flooded in. I once dreamt of losing both my legs. I know that despair and helplessness. If I could become a surgeon, perhaps I could help more people like me. This was the first time since my rebirth that I had mentioned my past life to anyone, even if I'd used a dream as the pretext. The night concealed my trembling hands. Chen Mo didn't press further, only offering a soft hum. We stood side by side like that, gazing at the starry sky, each lost in our own thoughts. A wonderful sense of tranquility and unspoken understanding flowed between us. Good luck on the Gaokao, Chen Mo said suddenly as we were about to part. I nodded. You too. The days that followed seemed to be on fast forward, stuck in a relentless cycle of practice problems, corrections, and review. I watched my notebook of mistakes grow thinner while my confidence swelled. 3 days before the college entrance exams, school let out for independent study. I was at home, organizing my final review notes, when Su Yuan's call came through. Lin Xiaoman. Her voice was urgent. Lu Mingchuan just asked if we could meet after school. He said he has something important to give me. I said no, but he seems determined to wait for me near my house. My heart sank like a stone. This was the day, in my past life, that I was hit by a car while delivering Lu Mingchuan's love letter to Su Yuan. He might want to deliver the love letter to you in person. I tried to keep my voice steady. So annoying, Su Yuan complained. I've already turned him down clearly several times. Oh, by the way, my cousin said if you're free, do you want to go to the library tomorrow for a final study session? Okay, I agreed, but after hanging up, I fell into deep thought. Lu Mingchuan is going to deliver the love letter himself. History seems to be repeating itself, only with the roles reversed. If he goes to deliver that love letter, will he get into a car accident like I did in my past life? Should I warn him? My finger hovered over Lu Mingchuan's name in my phone contacts, but I couldn't bring myself to tap it. The cruel words he said to me in my past life echoed in my ears. You're just a cripple. How could you ever compare to Yuan? If you hadn't meddled and gotten into that accident delivering the letter, why would I have been forced to marry you? I locked my phone screen, picked up my pen, and went back to studying. Everyone has the right to choose their own path, and they must be responsible for their choices. This time, I choose to focus on my own future. The Gaokao arrived right on schedule. Sitting in the examination hall, I felt an unexpected calm. Once the test papers were handed out, I became completely absorbed in answering the questions. I lost track of time, forgot everything around me, and even forgot that I was a reincarnated soul. In that moment, I was just an ordinary student, fighting with everything I had for my dream. When the bell rang to signal the end of the final subject, I put down my pen and let out a long, deep sigh. It was over. No matter the outcome, I had given it my all. Stepping out of the exam hall, the sunlight was dazzlingly bright. My mother was waiting for me at the school gate, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Congratulations on finishing the college entrance exams, she hugged me, the floral scent lingering in the air. Mom, did Lu Mingchuan take the exam? I hesitated for a moment before asking. My mother's expression grew complicated. He had an accident. He was hit by a car the night before last. His right leg was seriously injured, and the surgery took several hours. I had a feeling this was coming, but hearing the news firsthand still sent a shock through me. The gears of fate meshed together with such cruel precision. Only this time, the wheel rolled over Lu Mingchuan instead of me. Is it serious? I asked softly. I heard he might lose the limb. Mom sighed. His parents are beside themselves. He's their only son. I didn't say a word, just held my mother tightly. If I hadn't been reborn, it would be my parents falling apart right now. After getting home, I shut myself in my room, lying on the bed and staring at the ceiling. Logically, I should have felt the thrill of revenge, but strangely, all I felt was a deep weariness and a sense of release. Lu Mingchuan had paid the price for his choices, and I could finally, truly, move on. 8. It wasn't until the third day after the college entrance exams that my mother finally told me the details of Lu Mingchuan's post-surgery condition. He had his right lower leg amputated, she said while cutting fruit. I heard his recovery isn't going well, there might be an infection. I put down the book I was holding. Should we go visit him? Mom looked at me, surprised. You want to go? He is our neighbor, after all, and we grew up together, I said calmly. It's just basic courtesy. That afternoon, I went to the hospital with my parents. Lu Mingchuan's room was filled with flowers and fruit baskets, but his parents looked like they'd aged 10 years. Lu Mingchuan lay in the hospital bed, his right leg covered by a white blanket, noticeably shorter than the other. Xiao Man. His eyes lit up for a moment when he saw me, then dimmed again. How did your exams go? All right, I replied briefly, placing the fruit I'd brought on the nightstand. How are you feeling? He gave a bitter laugh. What else can I do? I'm useless now. Don't say that, Mrs. Lu interjected, her eyes red-rimmed. The doctor said you'll be able to walk again with a prosthetic. Lu Mingchuan didn't respond to her, he just looked at me. You must have done really well, right? You studied so hard. I didn't deny it. We'll know when the results come out. I didn't even take the college entrance exam. His voice choked with emotion. My life is over. The atmosphere in the hospital room was suffocatingly heavy. My parents and Lu Mingchuan's parents exchanged pleasantries, while I stood to the side, watching the once high-spirited young man now lying in the hospital bed. Wallowing in self-pity, I had experienced this kind of despair in my past life too, but at least now I had a chance to start over. Why didn't you come to see me before? Seizing a lull in the adults' conversation, Lu Mingchuan suddenly asked me in a low voice. The day of my accident, I kept calling your name. I looked him straight in the eye. Lu Mingchuan, we're not friends anymore, remember? His face went deathly pale. Just because I told you to stay away from Chen Mo. You're really going to be this heartless? No, it's because you look down on me. You use me, but you've never truly respected me, I said calmly. Focus on getting better. I wish you a speedy recovery. As we left the hospital, my mother looked at me with concern. Xiaoman, about you and Mingchuan. Mom, I cut her off. He and I stopped being on the same path a long time ago. Mom seemed on the verge of saying something, but in the end, she just sighed and let it go. On the day the Gaokao results were released, I sat in front of the computer early, my finger hovering over the query button. Mom stood nervously behind me, while Dad pretended to read the newspaper calmly, though he glanced at the screen every 3 seconds. Go ahead and check, Dad finally blurted out, unable to hold back any longer. I took a deep breath and clicked the button. The moment the page refreshed, my eyes went straight to the total score, 708, provincial rank, 66. Ah, Mom shrieked, pulling me into a tight hug. My daughter is amazing. Dad tossed his newspaper aside and wrapped both of us in a bear hug. That's my girl. Capital Medical University is in the bag. I sat there, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face. 708 points. In my past life, a score like that was beyond my wildest dreams. All the hard work and perseverance since my rebirth had finally paid off in this moment. The days that followed were a whirlwind of joy and busyness, submitting my application, preparing university enrollment materials, accepting congratulations from family and friends. My phone was flooded with celebratory texts, and even distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in years called to offer their well wishes. Xiaoman, we're thinking of throwing a celebration party for your college acceptance, Mom suggested over dinner one evening. We'll invite all our relatives and friends. What do you think? Sounds good, I agreed with a smile, but let's not go overboard. How could we not make it a big deal? Mom's eyes lit up. You're the only one from our neighborhood in years to get into Capital Medical University, and you ranked in the top 100 in the entire province. The celebration party was scheduled for the weekend in a hotel banquet hall. That day, I wore a simple white dress with my hair pulled up in a high ponytail, looking neat and tidy. The banquet hall was packed with people, relatives, neighbors, teachers, classmates. Xiaoman, congratulations. Li Xiaoqing walked in holding a bouquet of flowers. You and Chen Mo got the best scores in our class. You've really made us proud. I took the flowers and looked around. Is Chen Mo here? I just saw him outside. Li Xiaoqing blinked. Seems like he has something he wants to say to you alone. My heart suddenly raced. I excused myself to go to the restroom and stepped out of the banquet hall. Chen Mo was indeed standing by the window in the corridor. Sunlight streamed through the glass, casting a bright silhouette around him. "Congratulations," he said with a slight smile upon seeing me. "Capital Medical University is in the bag." "Yeah." I walked over to his side. "What about you? All set for Capital University?" He gave a nod. "Impressive," I said sincerely. After a moment of silence, he suddenly turned to face me. "Lin Xiaoman, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" I looked up at him and noticed the tips of his ears were slightly flushed. He took a deep breath. "I like you, not as a study partner, but, Chen Mo," I said softly, cutting him off. "We're still too young, with too little life experience. It's easy to mistake friendship for love at this stage." His expression froze. Are you turning me down?" "It's not a rejection," I said, choosing my words carefully. "I just think we should focus on our studies first. Medical school is incredibly demanding, and a long-distance relationship would only make it harder. If our feelings are still the same in a few years, can we revisit this then?" The truth was, I wasn't indifferent to Chen Mo, but the emotional scars from my past life made me hesitant to jump into a new relationship. I needed time, I needed space, I needed to become a better version of myself first. Chen Mo looked at me for a long time, then finally nodded. "I understand, but I'll wait," as he turned and walked away. My heart ached, but I knew it was the right decision. Back in the banquet hall, I was immediately enveloped in a joyful atmosphere. My classmates swarmed me with questions, and teachers came by one after another to offer their congratulations. Amidst all the laughter and chatter, I noticed a solitary figure in the corner, Lu Mingchuan. He sat in a wheelchair, the right leg of his trousers hanging empty and limp. No one was talking to him, no one even glanced his way. In my past life, I would always rush to his side at events like this, terrified he might feel lonely, but now I choose to stay among the crowd, accepting the blessings and glory that are rightfully mine. As the banquet was drawing to a close, Lu Mingchuan wheeled his chair to block my path. "Are you satisfied now?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Are you happy to see me like this?" I looked at him calmly. "I don't know what you mean. You could have stopped me." His eyes were bloodshot. "If you had just agreed to deliver that love letter for me, none of this would have happened." My heart skipped a beat. Lu Mingchuan, you're still so selfish." I gave a contemptuous smile and turned to walk towards my waiting parents. Behind me, Lu Mingchuan's hysterical shouts were quickly drowned out by the music and laughter from the banquet hall. "Are you okay?" Mom asked with concern. "What did he say?" "It's nothing." I linked my arm with Mom's. "Let's go home." Stepping out of the hotel, the summer night sky was exceptionally bright. I looked up, searching for the Big Dipper, and remembered my conversation with Chen Mo on the rooftop. No matter what lies ahead, at least for now, my life is moving in the right direction. The acceptance letter from Capital Medical University arrived a week later, holding the weighty envelope. I gently traced the gilded school name with my fingers as tears blurred my vision. A dream that felt utterly out of reach in a past life had finally come true in this one. 9. The ginkgo leaves at Capital Medical University turned from gold to green and back again. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye. I stood before the surgical residency bulletin board at the teaching hospital, my fingers gently tracing over the notice bearing my name and photo. Lin Xiaoman, orthopedic surgery resident. Sunlight streamed through the corridor window, spilling onto the paper, its glow seeming to shine directly into my heart. "Congratulations, Dr. Lin," head nurse Wang said with a smile as she walked over. "I heard you turned down the offer from Johns Hopkins. That's an opportunity many people dream of." I smiled, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "Our country needs good orthopedic surgeons more." Over the past decade, Chen Mo and I have maintained an on and off connection. He completed a double major in medicine and biology at Capital University and is now pursuing an MD PhD at Harvard. We occasionally discuss academic topics or share the latest medical papers on WeChat. Whenever he returns to China, we meet at a cafe near our alma mater and talk for hours. "Dr. Lin, operating room 3 is ready," intern Dr. Zhang said, poking his head in to inform me. I nodded and walked briskly toward the operating room. Today's procedure was a complex knee replacement for a 70-year-old retired teacher. Scrubbing in, disinfecting, and gowning up, the routine was as natural to me as breathing. Under the shadowless lamp, the moment the scalpel parts the skin, I am still filled with a profound sense of sacred duty. Every time I wield the scalpel, It feels like a redemption for that version of myself from a past life who lost both legs. The surgery lasted 3 hours and was successfully completed. Stepping out of the operating room, I removed my mask and let out a long, deep breath. A nurse handed me my phone, which showed 3 missed calls, all from Chen Mo. I called back, and the phone was answered almost instantly. Xiaoman, Chen Mo's voice came through the phone line. I'm back in the country. Great, I'll treat you to a meal. I walked towards the doctor's lounge and poured myself a glass of water. About Su Yuan and Lu Mingchuan, do you know? He paused. They got married. My hand jerked, and the glass nearly slipped from my grasp. What? It happened last year. Su Yuan was forced into it. The Lu family threatened to sue her for causing Lu Mingchuan's car accident if she didn't marry him. Chen Mo's voice was thick with suppressed anger. They're a bunch of scoundrels, relentless in their harassment. Su Yuan's parents are timid, afraid of trouble, so they pressured her into agreeing. I leaned against the wall, and the image of Su Yuan's once vibrant and spirited face surfaced in my mind. The scene from a past life overlapped with the present, only the roles were completely reversed. How is she now? I asked softly. Not well at all. Chen Mo sighed. Lu Mingchuan's leg injury never fully healed. He frequently needs surgery. His personality has turned volatile, and he's not good to Su Yuan. I only found out recently. My fingernails dug into my palms without me even realizing it. After hanging up the phone, I stood by the window, gazing at the distant city skyline. 10 years. I thought I had completely let go of the past, but hearing that news sent a dull ache spreading through my chest. It wasn't for Lu Mingchuan, but for Su Yuan, the girl I had mistaken for a rival in a past life, only to realize in this one that she was a victim too. After work, instead of heading straight home, I drove to my old high school. School was just letting out. Students in their uniforms streamed out of the classroom building, laughing and chatting, their youthful faces alight with anticipation for the future. Standing by the edge of the sports field, I was suddenly transported back in time, catching a glimpse of my younger self, that foolish girl who used to run around doing everything for Lu Mingchuan. Xiaoman, is that really you? A familiar voice called out from behind me. I turned around and saw my homeroom teacher, Ms. Li. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes had deepened, but her smile was just as warm and kind as I remembered. Ms. Li, I exclaimed with delight, rushing forward to greet her. I heard you became an orthopedic surgeon. I'm so proud of you. She took my hands, looking me over. That young girl who had a sudden breakthrough in class all those years ago has truly made her dream come true. My nose tingled with emotion. It's all thanks to your encouragement. Come on, let's go to my office for a bit. Ms. Li invited warmly. As it happens, the school wants to invite a few distinguished alumni back to give talks next month. Would you be interested? As I followed Ms. Li down the familiar hallway, my gaze drifted unconsciously toward my old senior year classroom. Through the window, I could almost see Chen Mo's profile as he bent his head to take notes, and the moment Lu Mingchuan turned back to smile at me. Those memories have grown so distant, they feel like someone else's story now. Teacher Li's office was covered in graduation photos from over the years. I found the one from our class, my fingers gently tracing over those youthful faces. Lu Mingchuan stood in the back row, his smile radiant. Su Yuan was front and center, dazzlingly beautiful. Chen Mo was just behind and to my side, his expression serious. And me, I could barely recognize that girl with the shy smile. Have you heard about Lu Mingchuan? Teacher Li asked suddenly, handing me a cup of tea. I nodded. I just heard he got married. That boy, he's changed so much. Teacher Li sighed. He was a different person after the accident. He came to the class reunion last year, in a wheelchair, ordering Su Yuan around. It was truly heartbreaking to see. Heartbreaking for whom? I asked softly. For both of them. Teacher Li looked at me with sorrowful eyes. That girl Su Yuan. She used to be so proud and spirited. Now, all that spark has been worn away. And Lu Mingchuan, to go from such a bright, sunny young man to this. I looked down at my reflection in the teacup and said nothing. Wasn't my past self just the same, from a high school student full of dreams, to a bitter woman trapped in a wheelchair and a failed marriage? But seeing you like this now, I'm truly happy, my dear. Teacher Li patted my hand. You've proven that no matter what happens, a person can always choose to stand up and keep moving forward. 10. The sun was setting as I left the school. I stood at the school gate, looking back at the building that held so many memories for the last time. Whatever lay ahead, at least in this moment, I was no longer that pitiful creature to be pushed around. My phone rang again. It was the hospital emergency department. Dr. Lynn, we have a complex case that requires your consultation, the doctor on duty said urgently. The patient has a severe infection in an old injury on the right leg, complicated by osteomyelitis. Emergency surgery may be necessary. I'll be right back. I quickened my pace towards the parking lot. Back at the hospital, I headed straight for the consultation room, through the glass window. I could see several doctors gathered inside. The person sitting on the hospital bed had their back to the door, but I recognized that silhouette instantly. Even after 10 years apart, I could never mistake it. Lu Mingchuan. My hand hesitated on the doorknob for a second before I pushed the door open. Dr. Lin is here. Chief Physician Professor Wang called to me. This patient had a right lower leg amputation 10 years ago. For the past 6 months, the residual limb has had recurrent infections. And multiple surgeries at other hospitals have been ineffective. Given your specialization in complex bone trauma and infection, I'd like to hear your opinion. I walked to the bedside and finally got a clear look at Lu Mingchuan's face. He was much thinner than I remembered, with heavy dark circles under his eyes and a downturned mouth. An air of gloom hung about him. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened, and his lips trembled, but no words came out. Let me see the medical record, I said calmly, taking the folder the resident handed me and began reviewing it with a professional air. Lin, Xiaoman. Lu Mingchuan finally found his voice. You became a doctor. Dr. Lin is the youngest attending physician in our hospital's orthopedics department, Professor Wang introduced proudly. I pretended not to notice Lu Mingchuan's shocked expression and focused on the medical chart. The situation was indeed complex: multiple failed surgeries, drug-resistant bacterial infection, necrotic tissue at the stump. A single misstep could necessitate a second amputation, or even be life-threatening. We need to perform surgical debridement immediately, combined with sensitive antibiotics, I said, closing the chart. If the infection isn't brought under control, we may have to consider a higher-level amputation. No, Lu Mingchuan's voice rose with sudden agitation. We can't amputate again. I've already. His voice caught in his throat, his eyes darting around frantically. Just then, the door to the consultation room swung open, and a haggard woman hurried in, clutching a stack of payment slips. It was Su Yuan. I could barely recognize her. Her once long, lustrous black hair had been cut into a dry, short style. The light had gone from her eyes, her mouth was downturned, and her entire being seemed drained of vitality. She visibly startled upon seeing me, then lowered her head and wordlessly took her place beside Lu Mingchuan. This is the patient's family member, the resident physician introduced. My wife, Lu Mingchuan emphasized, looking at me with a strange expression, a mix of provocation and expectation. I nodded and turned professionally to Su Yuan. The patient's condition is quite serious and requires immediate surgery. As the family member, please sign this surgical consent form. Su Yuan took the document, her fingers trembling slightly. She looked up at me, a flicker of complex emotion in her eyes, then silently signed her name. The surgery is scheduled for the first slot tomorrow morning. I told the team, administer stronger antibiotics tonight and monitor her temperature and blood work. After the consultation ended, I walked briskly towards my office, my heart pounding hard in my chest. 10 years, I never imagined we'd meet again like this, and even more unexpectedly, seeing Lu Mingchuan and Su Yuan in their current state brought me no sense of satisfaction, only a profound sadness. Dr. Lin, a voice called out to me. I turned to see Su Yuan catching up, out of breath. What is it? I stopped in my tracks. She bit her lip, seemingly struggling with what to say. Finally, she just whispered, please, do the surgery well, even though he's still. Su Yuan, I cut her off. I'm a doctor. I'll do everything in my power to treat any patient, no matter who they are. It's a matter of professional ethics. She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, and, I'm sorry. What are you apologizing for? For everything. Her voice was so faint it was almost inaudible. I don't know, maybe this is my karma. I took a deep breath. It wasn't your fault, I said, looking at the poor girl who had been emotionally manipulated by Lu Mingchuan for half her life. She looked at me in surprise, as if she hadn't expected me to say that. Go back and get some rest. I handed her a tissue. Tomorrow's surgery will be a long one. As I turned to leave, something suddenly occurred to me. I looked back and asked, does Chen Emo know you're in the hospital? She shook her head. Don't tell him. I don't want him to worry. That night, I tossed and turned in the hospital's on-call room. At 3 in the morning, I got up to check on Lu Mingchuan in his ward. He was propped up in bed, staring blankly into the night outside his window. When he saw me enter, his eyes lit up. "Xiao Man, I knew you'd come." "Just my rounds," I said calmly, checking his and vital signs. "You know what," he said, his voice hoarse, "I've thought of you every single day for the past 10 years. I regret not cherishing you when I had the chance." My hand stilled for a moment before I resumed recording the data from the monitor. "Seeing how accomplished you are now, I'm truly happy for you." He reached out to take my hand, but I deftly pulled away. "Please try to remain calm. It's very important for the procedure," I said in a strictly professional tone. "Please, don't." His voice took on a pleading tone. "I know you hate me, but I truly know I was wrong. Marrying Su Yuan was forced on me by my parents. I never loved her, not even a little." I looked up at him, suddenly struck by the sheer absurdity of it all. This was almost a carbon copy of the excuses he had given Su Yuan in our past life, only with the roles reversed. "You know," I said softly, "I had a limb amputated once." He was stunned. "What?" "In another time, another life." I met his gaze calmly. "I got into a car accident while delivering your love letter to Su Yuan. I lost my right leg and missed the college entrance exam. Out of guilt, your parents forced you to marry me, but you came to despise me. In the end, you abandoned me and ran off abroad with Su Yuan." His face turned deathly pale. What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." I took out my phone and discreetly pressed the record button. "Lu Mingchuan, in any timeline, you always pin the blame on everyone else. Do you really think you're completely blameless?" His breathing grew ragged. I didn't. You were the one who insisted on giving Su Yuan that love letter. Why are you denying it now?" "Yes, I was blind back then, but I realize now that it's you I love. Now it's your turn to know how that feels." I took a step closer. "Trapped in a broken body, dependent on someone who doesn't love you, living with regret every single day. How does it feel, Xiao Man?" Tears welled up in his eyes. "Please, forgive me, give me a chance. I'll divorce Su Yuan. I will provide you with the best medical care," I said, taking a step back. "Because it's my professional duty, but beyond that, there is nothing left between us." With that, I turned and left. As the door closed, I heard the sound of his muffled sobs. In the hallway, I paused, saved the recording I had just made, and sent it to Su Yuan with a message. "You deserve to know the truth, and you deserve a better life." 11. On the day of the surgery, I arrived at the hospital an hour early. Standing before the bathroom mirror, I meticulously washed and scrubbed my hands, mechanically repeating the motions I had performed 1,000 times before. The icy water streamed over my arms, washing away the last traces of hesitation and doubt. Today, I was not Lin Xiaoman, but Dr. Lin, a professional orthopedic surgeon. The operating room was ready. The anesthesiologist, scrub nurse, and circulating nurse were all in position. Under the shadowless lamp, Lu Mingchuan lay quietly on the operating table, already under anesthesia. "Let's begin," I announced, reaching out to take the scalpel handed to me by the nurse. The moment the blade cut into the skin, my world narrowed down to nothing but this surgical field, the infected tissue, the damaged bone, the remnants of old sutures. Every problem lay exposed before my eyes. The combination of a decade of medical training and the lived experience of a past life gave me an extraordinary understanding of this type of trauma. "Electrocautery," I extended my hand, and the scrub nurse placed the instrument into it with precision. The surgery lasted 6 hours. We thoroughly debrided all infected and necrotic tissue, repaired the damaged bone structure, and preserved as much of the residual limb length as possible. By the time the final suture was placed, my surgical gown was soaked through with sweat. "Procedure complete," I announced, straightening up with a weary but satisfied stretch. "Take him to recovery and monitor his vitals closely." Stepping out of the OR, I came face to face with Su Yuan, who had been waiting anxiously. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she was clutching a crumpled tissue in her hand. "How did it go?" she asked urgently. "The surgery was a success," I said, removing my mask. "The source of the infection has been cleared, and we managed to save the limb. However, a long course of rehabilitation will be necessary." Her shoulders slumped as if a great weight had been lifted. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me," I replied wearily, rubbing my temples. "It's my job." After a moment's hesitation, I finally asked the question. "The recording, did you listen to it?" Su Yuan nodded, a flicker of pain in her eyes. "I did, honestly, I didn't need to hear it to know. Ever since we got married, he often calls out your name in his sleep, then scolds me for not being you." My heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. Su Yuan, you don't have to live like this, I know, she said with a bitter smile, but my parents are afraid of retaliation from the Lu family. I don't know what to do. Does Chen Imo know about your situation? She shook her head. I don't want him to worry, he's busy enough overseas on his own. Silly, I couldn't help but say. Family is who you're supposed to lean on at times like this. If Chen Imo knew you were suffering like this and didn't tell him, that's what would really break his heart. Su Yuan's tears finally fell. I really can't hold on anymore. I took her to the doctor's lounge and poured her a cup of warm water. In fits and starts, she recounted the past 10 years, being forced into marriage, giving up the chance to study abroad, caring day and night for the temperamental Lu Mingchuan, and enduring the constant snide remarks from his parents. They think I'm the one who ruined Lu Mingchuan, Su Yuan said, wiping her tears. They say if I hadn't rejected his love letter that night, he wouldn't have gotten into the car accident. That's not your fault, I said firmly. Everyone is responsible for their own choices. Lu Mingchuan chose to speed on that rainy night. He has to bear the consequences himself. Su Yuan looked up at me, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You really think so? Of course, I took her cold hand in mine. Su Yuan. You're only 28, you have your whole life ahead of you. Don't make the same mistakes as some people. I want a divorce, Su Yuan said suddenly, her voice soft but firm. But the Lu family will never agree. They said if I dared to file for divorce, they'd make it impossible for my parents to stay in this city. I thought for a moment, then an idea struck me. What if we had proof that Lu Mingchuan is emotionally abusing you, like a recording? Su Yuan's eyes lit up. You mean the recording I sent you yesterday, combined with his ongoing verbal abuse, is more than enough to file for a restraining order and a divorce? I said. I can help you find a lawyer, and Chen Mo will definitely support you too. Xiao Man. Su Yuan's tears welled up again. Why are you helping me, even though I once? Because we're both victims, I said softly, and besides, it's a doctor's duty to show compassion. 12. 3 days later, Lu Mingchuan was fully awake from the anesthesia. When I went on my rounds, he was propped up in bed, gazing at the sunlight outside the window with a complicated expression. Su Yuan wasn't in the room. She had already taken the recording I provided and the documents prepared by the lawyer to file for divorce. The surgery was a success, I said, examining his wound. If your recovery goes well, you can be fitted for a new prosthetic in 2 months. Lu Mingchuan turned to look at me. His eyes filled with a vulnerability and confusion I had never seen before. Su Yuan is gone. My hands kept moving. She said she wants a divorce. His voice trembled. Said she's never coming back. I didn't respond, continuing to record his vital signs. Xiao Man. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. I have nothing left now. Please, just give me one more chance. Okay, I swear I'll. Lu Mingchuan, I said calmly, withdrawing my hand. Have I ever told you about what you did to me in another timeline? When I needed you most, you chose someone else. The color drained from his face. Now you know the pain I felt back then, I said, looking him straight in the eye. But that doesn't mean I'll follow in your footsteps. I have my own life, my career, and my people I care about. Chen Mo. He let out a bitter laugh. I should have known it was him. That's none of your business. I closed the medical chart. Get some rest. Your rehabilitation starts tomorrow. Stepping out of the ward, I let out a long sigh of relief, as if a burden I'd carried for years had finally been lifted from my shoulders. The thrill of revenge. No, all I felt was a profound sense of release. Everything from my past life was finally, in this moment, brought to a close. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Chen Mo. Su Yuan has told me everything. Thank you for your help. When are you free? I'd like to see you. I replied. Let's wait until Lu Mingchuan is discharged from the hospital. I want to focus on completing this course of treatment. A month later, Lu Mingchuan's wounds had healed well, and he was ready to be transferred to a rehabilitation center. The divorce proceedings had also been initiated. Su Yuan decided to stay in the U.S. for the time being, planning to reapply to resume her interrupted studies. On the day Lu Mingchuan was discharged, his parents came to pick him up. When Mrs. Lu saw me, a flicker of awkwardness and shame passed through her eyes. Dr. Lin, she began hesitantly. Thank you for healing my son. In the past, I shook my head. I just did what any doctor would do. As I turned to leave, I heard a loud clatter of objects hitting the floor. Lu Mingchuan called my name from behind, but I didn't look back. 13. 2 weeks after Lu Mingchuan was discharged from the hospital, Chen Mo and I met at a cafe near our alma mater. A decade had passed, and Chen Mo carried himself with a newfound steadiness. There was a resolute firmness in his brow, the kind unique to a mature man, dressed in a simple white shirt and dark trousers. His eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses lit up the moment he saw me. "Xiao man." He stood up and pulled out the chair for me. "You've lost weight, occupational hazard for a surgeon." I replied with a smile as I sat down. "How is Su Yuan?" "Much better." Chen Mo slid over the latte I had already ordered. "She's preparing to reapply for the PhD program at MIT. The divorce proceedings went smoothly. The Liu family didn't dare make any more trouble after they heard those recordings." I gave a nod and took a small sip of coffee, letting the warm liquid slide down my throat. "Thank you," Chen Mo said suddenly. "If it weren't for you, Su Yuan might have been trapped in that marriage for the rest of her life." "I just did what anyone should have done," I said, setting down my cup. "By the way, how's your research at Harvard going?" Chen Mo's eyes lit up instantly, and he launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his project on the application of gene editing technology in bone regeneration. As I listened, I couldn't help but smile. He was still the same Chen Mo who couldn't stop talking once he got started on medicine. Only now he seemed more confident and passionate, actually. He suddenly changed the subject. "There's another reason I came back this time, besides dealing with Su Yuan's matter." "What is it?" I asked curiously. He took a small box from his pocket and slid it across the table to me. My heart began to race. With slightly trembling fingers, I opened the box. Inside wasn't a ring, but a uniquely designed badge engraved with the words Harvard MIT Health Sciences and Technology Joint Program. "I'd like to invite you to join my research team." Chen Mo's voice was calm, but his eyes burned with intensity. "Combining your clinical experience with my foundational research, we could achieve a breakthrough in the field of bone regeneration." I picked up the badge, the sunlight streaming through the window refracting into a rainbow of colors across its surface. "Is this a job offer?" "It's more than that." Chen Mo took a deep breath. "It's also the beginning of me wanting to pursue you again. 10 years ago, you said we were too young. Now, I believe we're both mature enough to know what we truly want." I looked at the man who had stood by me through the most crucial years of my rebirth, and a wave of warmth surged in my chest. In my past life, I never knew what a healthy love felt like. In this life, Chen Mo, in his own way, has shown me the true meaning of respect, understanding, and support. "I need some time to think it over," I finally said. "My work is here. My patients need me." "Of course," Chen Mo nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you." As we left the cafe, the setting sun stretched our shadows long across the ground. His hand brushed against mine now and then, warm and steady. "Oh, right." He suddenly remembered something. "The school anniversary is next month. Teacher Lee invited us back to give a speech. Are you going?" "I'm going," I answered without hesitation. "I want to tell those kids that no matter what happens, life always gives you a second chance." A year later, Chen Mo and I had a simple wedding in the U.S. On the eve of the ceremony, I received a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations, I owe you an apology, and I owe you my thanks, Lu Mingchuan." I didn't reply. I just silently deleted the message. According to Su Yuan, Lu Mingchuan's father passed away not long ago. To support his family, Lu left the rehabilitation center early. I have no idea what he's doing for work now, but I don't care anymore. Whether he's doing well or not has nothing to do with me. He brought all of this on himself. At the wedding, as Chen Mo slipped a specially made ring onto my finger, I saw the inscription inside: "To heal, to love, to grow." I looked up at the man who was about to become my husband, my heart filled with a quiet, profound joy. Instead of exchanging expensive diamond rings, we chose these special surgical steel bands. They symbolize both our profession and the strong, pure bond between us. On the 5th anniversary of our school's founding, Chen Mo and I returned to our alma mater to give a speech, bringing our 3-year-old twins. The two children sat in the front row, looking around curiously, while Chen Mo and I stood on the stage, sharing our story. "The most wonderful thing about life," I said, smiling at the young faces in the audience, "is that it's always full of infinite possibilities. No matter what setbacks you face, remember, the sun will rise again tomorrow. And you will always have the chance to start anew." After the speech, a limping figure quietly slipped out from the back of the auditorium. I didn't run after them. I didn't even let my gaze linger. On the way home, Chen Mo carried a child in each arm. I walked beside him as the setting sun stretched our 4 shadows long, merging them into one that pointed toward the distant horizon. The end.